Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Hokage, I Legend, Eyes of My God. Chapter 71. All the personnel dispersed, and after realizing that the last ninja dispatched successfully eliminated the ambush, Yusuke breathed a sigh of relief. No surprises. Solved. The leading ninja noticed Yusuke exhaling and felt a little more at ease, and asked Yusuke tentatively. The ninjas on the road are the focus of the encirclement. At this point, Yusuke's plan is considered to be 70% complete. But this is only part of it. What's really important is that now they have a way out. Even if you can't beat him, you still have room to run. If you don't deal with the people who are spreading out and preparing to form an encirclement, then if you enter the encirclement, you will have no way out and you won't be able to escape even if you want to. Solved. Yusuke nodded, completely reassuring the leading ninja. Now that 70% is solved, the remaining 30% will emerge. They're coming. After walking a short distance, Yusuke's voice suddenly reached the ears of the leading ninja. This sound made him instantly alert. Hiss. This voice instantly reminded Yusuke of the days when he scared Nawaki before. In terms of sensitivity to the sound of detonating cymbals, Nawaki is the only one in the ninja world who can touch me. Earth-style wall. A wall of earth rose quickly, completely protecting Yusuke and the ninja behind Yusuke. Bang! The shock wave caused by the explosion shock wave, mixed with rainwater, blew from both sides of the earth flow wall. How could I forget what I taught Nawaki? When you lose the enemy's vision, it means that the opponent also loses your vision. This is the case now. While retracting the earth flow wall, Yusuke activated Earth-style earth dive. Taking advantage of the cover of the smoke, the opponent quickly came out of the smoke and faced Konoha Shinobi directly. Where is Yusuke Mikami? The root ninja's eyes scanned the crowd, but he didn't find Yusuke Mikami at all. Directly bombed to death. The leading ninja was also confused. Although Yusuke had warned him in advance and raised an earth current wall to block the explosion. But the huge airflow still made them subconsciously close their eyes. As a result, I opened my eyes again. Where is Yusuke Mikami? But he didn't think about Yusuke being killed by the explosion. After all, it was Yusuke who raised the earth flow wall in the first place. But what about others now? After realizing that Yusuke was hiding, the leading ninja immediately began to observe the group of people who blocked him. None of these people had obvious identification marks on them. But one thing is certain, the other party is definitely not a Konoha shinobi. We are all from Konoha, so why are they beating us? Not from Konoha, that's Rain Shinobi. But along the way, the Rain Shinobi ninjas I met all carried their own forehead protectors. Could it be that the other party is not Rain Shinobis? So what is the origin of the other party? Face to face with the ninjas of Konoha, even though they said they didn't know each other, it was really a bit embarrassing, so the leader of the Roots even subconsciously wanted to leave directly. Earth-style hard beheading technique. But he just wanted to leave without saying a word, but the next second, he felt empty under his feet. Immediately afterwards, there was a feeling of being stuck in his neck, and his body was also imprisoned. Even as soon as he felt it, before he had time to react, a cold light flashed in front of his eyes. The ninja at the root was stunned when he saw that his leader was killed directly. Konoha's leading ninja was also stunned for a moment subconsciously. But because the one whose roots were cut off was the one who took the lead, the ninjas of Konoha reacted first. Do it. Yusuke should have done this. In addition to Yusuke, they also saw ninjas approaching from a distance. They are all their own people. The ninjas at the root obviously didn't pay attention to this, and one even shouted. Reinforcements are coming, keep them here forever. When Konoha's leading ninja heard these words, he wanted to die just like that. And Yusuke, who emerged from the earth and stood in front of the head of the root-led ninja, took action directly. Both sides were fighting to the death, and Yusuke didn't hold back at all. The ninja at the base felt it instantly, a pulling feeling emanating from Yusuke's body. Not only his own body, but also the rain around him floated towards Yusuke. As Yusuke charged up his energy, a small Uzumaki was formed in a short time. In the eyes of the root ninja, isn't this the other party taking the initiative to close the distance with themselves? They took out their respective kunai, planning to wait for Yusuke to pull themselves to him, then directly give Yusuke's waist. The pull of the wind was very strong, and the ninjas at the base did not resist. They all wanted to get to Yusuke's side as soon as possible. So this simple Chihayajin pulled the rude ninja to his side. Back and forth to nature. But just when they reached a fairly close distance, Yusuke moved. His figure seemed to be blown up by the wind. With a slight jump, he reached a distance that was as high as he thought. Chihaya-jin, second paragraph. Falling attack Lanlan dial. Yusuke's figure fell heavily to the ground, and the previous feeling of pulling was no longer there, replaced by his own body, as if it was in a spoof vacuum environment. Light and airy. And what this feeling brings is that I can't exert my strength. There was no need to use his ultimate move. Yusuke retreated directly into the patrol team. At the same time, he issued orders to the ninjas around him and those surrounding him. Use water style and attack with all your strength. Emerald Shadows set a 4. The damage caused by the diffusion reaction is increased by 60%. Depending on the type of element diffused, the affected enemy's corresponding elemental resistance is reduced by 40% for 10 seconds. It's raining now, so the Chihaya vibration just now spreads the water element to everyone. The result of the spread is that these people's water element resistance has been reduced, so Yusuke ordered to use water style to attack. There was a brief gap in which the opponent could not exert force, and the resistance was reduced again. Therefore, this group of ninjas were all dead before the 2 rounds of ninjutsu bombing were completed. I always feel that today's water style is particularly effective. After dealing with these ninjas, the leading ninja also walked up to Yusuke, looking at his hands with a bit of disbelief in his eyes. Maybe it's because it's raining and there's enough water in the air. It's really possible. After Yusuke's explanation, the leading ninja no longer cared about it and began to look at the corpses on the ground. These ninjas don't have anything on them that indicates their belongings. Yusuke said nothing. In fact, if you open the mouths of these people, you can see the curse marks on their tongues. Speaking of this, Yusuke's desire to complain was very high. You said you were going to fix the tongue to eliminate the seal of trouble, but the result was that it still left traces on the tongue. Doesn't this clearly point to you? But since the leader didn't notice it, Yusuke didn't say much now. After all, Danzo still has room for maneuver. What I want is to beat Danzo to death with a stick. Although the other party also hates Danzo, Danzo's identity is there. Instilling dislike in people Danzo cannot be rushed, as rushing is likely to produce negative results. The days are long, so I'll write this down for Danzo first. When Yusuke returned to Konoha camp, he saw Tsunade and Orochimaru in the distance. What, you mean Jiraiya? Of course I'm grounded. After Yusuke entered the camp, Tsunade rushed directly in front of Yusuke. Although it is already known that Yusuke can face the Hard Steel Alliance, Rain Shinobi's usual routine is the one that comes from Yin. There is still a possibility of overturning, so Tsunade is still very worried about Yusuke. He pulled Yusuke on the spot and looked at his arms on the left and his legs on the right, for fear that Yusuke might be injured. Is there anything uncomfortable? After the external injury examination was completed, Tsunade asked if there were any internal injuries. Although I really want to pretend to be hurt and lie in your arms, lean on your chest, and let you comfort me, but I feel like I will be punched away. What greeted Yusuke was naturally an iron fist of shame and anger on his chest. The only difference is that he wasn't beaten away. Orochimaru also silently praised Yusuke in his heart. Of course, not only because Yusuke dared to talk to Tsunade like this, but also because of today's record. Orochimaru was the commander, so when the leader saw Orochimaru, he directly brought the collected Rain Shinobi Forehead Protector to Orochimaru. The Rain Shinobi Forehead Protector is almost piled up like a mountain. This has been the biggest gain during this period, or apart from several large-scale conflicts. Coupled with the fact that no one was injured today, the value of today's victory becomes even higher. Having someone take Rain Shinobi's Forehead Protector down, Orochimaru's attention turned to the body the ninja brought back. These corpses. The leading ninja saw Orochimaru asking about this, and took the initiative to tell Orochimaru about how he was almost surrounded by this group of people today. Orochimaru glanced at Yusuke calmly. Yusuke also noticed Orochimaru glance at him and gave Orochimaru a brief wink. Orochimaru didn't know why, but when Yusuke looked at him like this, he felt like laughing. With Yusuke's IQ, he was probably aware of these people from the beginning. The leading ninja spoke with great emotion, and Orochimaru also understood the meaning behind the leading ninja's words. Today's credit is all due to Yusuke. Without Yusuke, our couple would almost be here. These people are unknown and I hope Orochimaru will investigate them carefully. This is roughly the reason. Although it is true that there may be some exaggeration in order to praise Yusuke, but for the most part, Orochimaru still believes that it is true. At the same time, I also marveled at Yusuke's charisma. Whether it's him, Tsunade, Jiraiya, or even any ninja who has been on a mission once, they will all be attracted and impressed by him. At the same time, Danzo's IQ was once again severely questioned. There's nothing wrong with conspiracy, but can't you really confirm Yusuke's own combat power? Although I was there when Yusuke and Jiraiya fought, Yusuke didn't show any particularly strong combat power at that time. Although I never saw Yusuke take action later, I could always feel that Yusuke's strength had grown to a very terrifying stage. It can only be said that Danzo does not have a pair of eyes like Hatake Tsukumo. After the leading ninja finished speaking, Orochimaru patted the other party's shoulder, indicating that he understood everything. At this point, the ninjas dispersed, and Orochimaru also took Yusuke to Jiraiya's tent. It's great that you're okay, Yusuke. Yusuke smiled and nodded in agreement, sat down and chatted for a few words, and Orochimaru quickly brought the topic to the point. I've already put the things you asked me to put away. What about those Danzo people? Let's put it where the bodies are stored. Just scare him. Danzo's tent. Mission failed. Danzo was just about to throw something and have a fit, but at this moment, a very small sound suddenly sounded outside the tent. But this sound was particularly obvious in the quiet tent. Have you heard that the team that went out for inspection today was attacked by someone from an unknown force? Real or fake? Can I still lie to you? It is said that Lord Orochimaru suspects that this matter is related to the Arataki faction that caused a lot of trouble before, and is going to return to the village to ask the Yamanaka clan to investigate. The secret technique of the Yamanaka clan can explore people's memories. Hearing these words, Danzo felt a chill on his back. If the Yamanaka clan were to investigate, they would be doomed. Because with Yusuke Mikami were a group of Konoha ninjas. Yusuke Mikami was alone, so he still had to wash himself, but for the group of ninjas who were with Yusuke Mikami, he had no good reason to explain. Danzo's head began to race wildly, and he began to think of solutions. Outside the tent, Yusuke and Jiraiya covered their mouths, tried hard to suppress their laughter, and secretly left Danzo's tent. 2 weeks later, Rain Shinobi Village. The recent situation on the Fire Nation's front is not optimistic. Hanzo's brows furrowed, and he let out a majestic aura that instantly made everyone in the room breathless. I remember that 2 weeks ago on the Fire Country battlefield, we still had a huge advantage. Why did we suddenly become less optimistic? Which front should you go to and which front has the advantage? As long as you are not around, the advantages on any front will gradually disappear, or even directly become a disadvantage. I have been developing my military power for so many years, how could this happen? If possible, Hanzo would like to grab the collars of the leaders of each front and ask these people if they would not be able to fight without him. The ninja responsible for collecting frontline battle reports suppressed the sweat on his forehead and reported the reasons to Hanzo. After Konoha's defeat, they secretly changed their commander-in-chief. The current commander-in-chief is Konoha's Orochimaru. And what's more, if you have anything to say, just say it. Konoha has a ninja with strong perception. All our previous tactics have failed, which is why the Fire Nation's front began to collapse. A sentient ninja can single-handedly turn the war around. Compared with the other two fronts, the reason why the Fire Country front was at a disadvantage made Hanzo feel that his blood pressure was a little higher than after hearing the news about the first two fronts. But at the same time, Hanzo did not give up, and then asked, what about assassination by a sentient ninja? Konoha also realized his value, so he protected Yusuke Mikami very well, and all the ninjas he sent were discovered by his perception ability. Hanzo proposed several more solutions, but was told the other party's solution. As he was questioned again and again, Hanzo's blood pressure directly rose to a new height. After a long moment of silence, Hanzo finally made a decision. I will go to the Konoha battlefield myself. As for the Fire Nation battlefront that made Danzo's blood pressure soar, the atmosphere in the camp was completely different from when Yusuke first arrived. When Yusuke first arrived, the camp couldn't be said to be lifeless, but it was still a bit dull. As for now, during the mission, the ninjas can make a few jokes among themselves from time to time. After Yusuke and Orochimaru scared him once, they stole all the corpses that night. And in Yusuke's hands, there were a lot more photos of the root ninja stealing the corpse from the seal scroll. As for how it came about, let's also talk about the camera Yusuke gave to Orochimaru. A 4-star item drawn with the fate of entanglement. Although in this era, there is no such thing as a camera in Hokage's worldview, but by that time of the plot, there will be. With this one in Yusuke's hands, it could be considered an early appearance at best. So Yusuke didn't take this seriously at first. Until he talked to Orochimaru about Danzo stealing corpses, Yusuke suddenly thought of these things. This photo camera can be set to take pictures at a fixed time and can be automatically stored. Isn't this suitable for monitoring? Anyway, there was no video recorder in this era, so they couldn't recognize it. The day after Danzo stole the body, Yusuke and Jiraiya went to scare Danzo again. The reason used this time was probably a few words, similar to the news that Orochimaru suspected that the person who stole the body was inside the camp. The day he got the news, Danzo ran back to Konoha without even caring about Yusuke Mikami or Yusuke Mikami. There's nothing you can do about it unless you return it yourself. The scrolls used to store corpses are usually special extra-large scrolls. And such a scroll coming out of the camp is really eye-catching. Moreover, Orochimaru still used it and won the battle. Fearing Rain Shinobi's revenge, he increased his vigilance and the scroll could not be sent out. With no other choice, Danzo could only stuff the corpses he stole back into the original scrolls on the grounds that there were too many corpses and he had to take people back to Konoha for burial and then left the camp. Now that he's out of the camp, there's no reason for Danzo to come back. At this point, Orochimaru has basically mastered the entire Konoha camp. As for why it is said to be basic, it is because when Danzo left, there was no reason to deal with the small number of root members left, so we had to marginalize them first. After all, Danzo is really impatient. He was too anxious to verify the authenticity of the matter. Although he asked Orochimaru to confirm, Orochimaru would tell him that the news was true. Orochimaru, is Danzo the Nabe Cage, or am I the Nabe Cage? Danzo left, but I don't know where the news came out that Danzo didn't have 300 taels of silver here, and he was anxious to return to Konoha because he was afraid of being found on him. He quietly began to spread the news on the front lines. All in all, Konohagakure is now considered monolithic. Orochimaru is responsible for the macro command of the battlefield, while Yusuke goes to the battlefield personally and is responsible for the detailed mobilization on the battlefield. The anti-venom agent developed by Tsunade became more and more effective, and with the addition of few new wounded, the number of wounded began to decrease, and more people began to return to the battlefield. After Danzo left, Jiraiya began to let himself go completely and indulged in going on missions with Yusuke. After all, it's really fun to go on missions with Yusuke. Fight how you let yourself, fight by yourself. Then you can gain a lot of military exploits and begin to understand what the fun of being a thug is. In this way, the situation that was originally balanced, even with a slight disadvantage, began to gradually improve. But under such circumstances, a piece of news reached the headquarters. Orochimaru had just finished handling the internal affairs in the camp and planned to take a sip of tea to relax his mind. As a result, at this moment, a ninja quickly ran into the headquarters. What are you doing in such a hurry? If you have anything to do, tell me slowly. But the ninja who came to report was not in the mood to relax, and reported what happened to Orochimaru as fast as he could. The ninjas lurking in Rain Shinobi village sent back news that Danzo has personally arrived at the front line of Konoha. Now I estimate that he has already arrived at the front line. Orochimaru no longer thought about drinking tea, and his eyes narrowed into a narrow slit. And this sentence was also heard by Tsunade, who was just about to enter. Because this time Hanzo is actually hiding in the ranks of ordinary ninjas and setting off to the front line with ordinary ninjas. If this is the case, it is reasonable for the news to come now. Yusuke and Jiraiya are on a mission today. Tsunade's words made Orochimaru realize the purpose of Hanzo's trip. It was Yusuke who turned the tables. Maybe, the two sides are already facing each other now. Immediately notify all teams that can fight and set off for the battlefield immediately. Orochimaru's order also made Tsunade realize what happened. Yes, the informed ninja left, and Tsunade quickly walked up to Orochimaru and made his request, "I'll go too." "Then get ready to go." "Yes, front, stop." Yusuke stretched out his hand and stopped the advancing team behind him. "What's wrong?" Jiraiya walked to Yusuke's side and noticed that Yusuke's expression was much more serious than usual, so he asked hurriedly. "Here comes a strong man." "Strong?" Just when Jiraiya was thinking about who the strongest range shinobi would be, Yusuke's voice shook the bodies of all the ninjas present. It's very possible that Hanzo himself went to the front line. Real or fake, ordinary ninjas, with Yusuke here, Jiraiya can be said to be not weak at all, but if it is Hanzo, Jiraiya is still a bit weak. If it's Jiraiya later in the plot, who knows magic and has enhanced fire style with oil, then it's definitely true. But the problem is, he doesn't now. The celestial art that I will be good at in the future, the summoning art, will just be the summoning art now. Retreat? Jiraiya asked tentatively. After all, the range of Yusuke's perception is generally very wide, and the distance between the target and the target is definitely enough to run. I think there is a high probability that we will not be able to retreat. But Yusuke shook his head, stood up, and turned to face the ninjas he brought out. Orochimaru looked up at Yusuke, and Yusuke's voice came from above. The main force is facing Hanzo. Everyone, prepare to support the main force. Yusuke's eyes under the bandage showed a bit of determination. It seems that today should be the Battle of Sannin. The title Sannin will be famous in the ninja world in the future. But this title is a mark of shame given to the enemies who defeated the three of them. Whether or not this title can be given depends on whether Tsunade wants it or not. When Yusuke and Jiraiya arrived at the place where the two sides were confronting each other, they immediately saw Tsunade and Orochimaru standing at the front of Konoha. Orochimaru had the urge to scold her. He originally planned to lead a large force to support Yusuke. As a result, Yusuke and the others did not encounter them, but directly encountered Hanzo's large army. What is this thing called? Standing at the front of Rain Shinobi is naturally the leader of Rain Shinobi village. Hanzo of the Salamander, who holds the title of Ninja Demigod. This is the first time Yusuke has seen the real-life version of Hanzo. No matter what, this person's evaluation in the Book of Masters is still very impressive. The name is the legend, the ninja who reached the pinnacle. There really is a prototype of Hanzo that can be found. It even has the same name as the prototype. Hattori Hanzo, a very familiar name. In fact, the name, Hanzo, for Hanzo in the abdomen is actually a name passed down from generation to generation in the Hattori family. Hattori Hanzo refers to Hattori Masashi of the second generation. As for how the name Hanzo is related to ninjas, it is because many of the Iga soldiers under Hanzo are Iga ninjas. Therefore, the popular image of Hanzo, as well as the name Hattori Hanzo, also represent the famous ninja legion of the Tokugawa clan. So, the prototype is very cool, and Hanzo of the Salamander is not far behind. The aura is so strong that even wearing a gas mask can't stop Hanzo's good looks. A little bit ugly. I'm coming, Jiraiya. Yusuke originally thought that after the two sides fought, these people he brought would enter the scene as surprise troops. Although this might miss the scene where Hanzo gives the name, Sannin, but Sannin is not a good name. Yusuke was looking at Hanzo below in a daze, but he was directly attacked by a super sound wave from close range, which brought him back to reality. He tilted his head and looked. Okay, Jiraiya is standing up now. Looking up at Jiraiya, Yusuke wanted to kick Jiraiya down. I was so stunned that I ended up doing this. After shouting that it was not over yet, Jiraiya jumped down from his body and landed firmly on the ground, right next to Tsunade and Orochimaru. Jiraiya has gone down, and there is no point in hiding here. Yusuke also stood up. For a time, a strange balance formed between Rain Shinobi's side, Yusuke's side, and Konoha's main side. Orochimaru looked at Jiraiya, who had fallen next to him, with an eager expression on his face, and then looked up at Yusuke, who was looking down at everything. Inexplicably, he felt in his heart that Yusuke had the same thoughts of scolding his mother as himself. But that's fine too. If you fight like this, whoever loses will naturally be convinced. After the fight is over, there is no need to worry about whether external things such as tactics were used. That is to say, if they fight like this, there will be no reason to look for it if they lose. After all, the competition is based on their own hard power. Who is Yusuke Mikami? Aha, are you here for me? Hanzo's voice was very loud, and Yusuke even wondered whether he would shout in the next second, "I will end his life." Now that the other party is looking for him, Yusuke doesn't get used to Hanzo's problems. "Your grandpa Yusuke Mikami is here," Yusuke shouted back with a voice louder than Hanzo's. Looking at Yusuke, who was standing high up, there was not much anger in Hanzo's eyes, but instead he was terrifyingly calm. Hanzo is a very cautious person, and even if he is fighting an unknown ninja, he will not treat him with the slightest contempt. Always choose the most reliable method to eliminate your opponents. For example, fight 3 little Nagatos. But Yusuke still shocked Hanzo a little, mainly because of the bandage Yusuke had on his eyes. Just such a blind man, leading Konoha, successfully suppressed Rain Shinobi. Yusuke's shout also successfully mobilized the momentum of the Konoha Shinobi. Who is on the opposite side? The demigod of the ninja world. Yusuke is really brave, he directly said that he is the grandfather of demigods. Smooth talk, I think you are just a bid taker. At this time, Hanzo didn't have much interest in continuing to talk nonsense. Yusuke's words not only mobilized Konoha's momentum, but Rain Shinobi on his side also had anger on his face. Kill. Following Hanzo's roar, the ninjas from both sides soon met. This is on the battlefield. Your kindness to your enemies is cruelty to yourself. Raindrops began to fall, and the blood that fell on the ground was diluted by the rain. The Konoha shinobi who were standing on the high platform also jumped down and joined the battlefield. Yusuke originally wanted to go down directly, but being pulled. The ninja leading the team today is Yusuke's first mission. The other party directly photographed 2 people and gave the 2 ninjas orders to protect Yusuke. After all, Hanzo's first sentence was to ask where Yusuke was. He was obviously heading towards Yusuke. As for Yusuke, although he shouts very powerfully, after all, he is just a sentient ninja. Avertisement. At least that's what the leading ninja thought. Yusuke also knew that the other party was kind to him, but this kind of behavior made Yusuke so angry that he wanted to laugh. Soldiers, against generals. Ordinary ninjas consciously go looking for their opponents, and Hanzo also directly went to Orochimaru and the other 3. As soon as it came up, it was a physical battle. Orochimaru now does not have many Kusanagi swords in his hands like he did later. As for Hanzo, he still had a ninja scythe in his hand, and the 3 Orochimaru could only use kunai to face Hanzo's ninja scythe. Hanzo's strength is already strong, plus the ninja kama is every inch longer and stronger. So in the taijutsu stage, Hanzo was completely fighting with 3 people on his side. Moreover, Hanzo doesn't seem to be doing it conventionally, using only taijutsu. Hanzo is also quite proficient in mixing skills into level A. Originally, they couldn't beat him with physical skills, but as a result, the opponent still had some spare time to think about and kept throwing ninjutsu, making the fight between Orochimaru and the 3 of them even more uncomfortable. Latent Shadow Snake Hand. During the confrontation, Orochimaru finally found an opportunity and successfully used his ninjutsu. And the snake also managed to get the snake to wrap around Hanzo's body. Orochimaru didn't even have time for Tsunade and Jiraiya to attack directly. Hanzo directly made a hand seal with Hanzo's hand before the snake completely tied him up. Water instantly. The entangled body turned into a puddle of water, and the 3 of them lost Hanzo's vision. Hanzo was not the type to teleport behind someone and yell before attacking, so the ninja kama slashed directly at Orochimaru's neck. Fortunately, Jiraiya was quick enough and pulled Orochimaru away, allowing Orochimaru to barely avoid Hanzo's attack. So close, Orochimaru could clearly hear his own heartbeat at this time. The pressure is too much. Yusuke held his chin with both hands, looking helpless. I just talked to the 2 ninjas who were protecting me for a long time, and it was absolutely fine for me to go to the battlefield. But these 2 people didn't believe it at all. There is no need to endure it anymore. Yusuke placed both hands directly behind the heads of the 2 ninjas. With his hands in the shape of a knife, he lightly tapped the 2 people on the back of their necks. The two people lay directly on the ground. All kinds of movies and TV series don't deceive me. As soon as the two men fell, Yusuke was freed from restraints. He found a place to hide the two men, and Yusuke turned around and ran towards the battlefield. The battles between ordinary people became more and more fierce, and more people fell. The fierce battle between Hanzo and Orochimaru's trio became increasingly fierce. As for the battle situation, the decline of the three Orochimaru people became more and more obvious. This has something to do with Hanzo not holding back. At this time, Hanzo has already used his true strength. Poison. Sansho fish is a highly poisonous specialty in the Rain country. In Rain Shinobi Village, there used to be a highly poisonous black Sansho fish. After the death of the Sansho fish, its poison sac was implanted into Hanzo's body. As a result, Hanzo became resistant to poison and gained the ability to control poison sac poisoning. Some of these poisons, after being diluted, became a deadly weapon for Rain Shinobi. The antidote Tsunade prepared previously was only for the diluted poison. Hanzo's poison has changed from quantitative to qualitative. Although it is not poisonous, it is still very uncomfortable. The more Hanzo fought, the easier it became, and the more obvious his advantage became, while the three of them became more and more uncomfortable. Tsunade successfully hit Hanzo with a side kick. Logically speaking, with the blessing of strange power, Tsunade has always been invincible. But Hanzo raised his arms and lifted Tsunade's leg off. After carrying it down, Hanzo quickly retreated. You've obviously taken it down, why are you still retreating? Tsunade was a little confused for a moment, but soon realized why. On his own leg, where he had just kicked Hanzo, a large number of detonating charms had been attached. These detonating charms seemed to come alive, quickly covering Tsunade's entire legs. As Hanzo retreated, his hands began to form seals. Fire-style detonating flame array. Ninjutsu, Needle Jizo. As Jiraiya's strongest defensive skill, Jiraiya's hair flew towards Tsunade quickly, trying to use her own hair to take this move for Tsunade. But at this critical moment, an arrow with a blue stream of light flew from a distance. Boom! Hanzo watched the arrow fly towards him. Directly giving up the seal, Hanzo quickly pulled away and barely dodged the arrows flying from nowhere. But this arrow gave Hanzo no time to rejoice. When the arrow hit the ground, the water on a small area on the ground turned directly into ice. This wasn't the end yet. As the ground solidified into ice, a huge ice cone suddenly appeared on Hanzo's head. The ice cone exploded directly. After the explosion, the small ice cone was pierced towards the ground in a cone-shaped area with the ice cone as the apex. Ganyu's normal attack and Ludian shooting technique. Ganyu is an amazing character. She is the only archer who relies on normal attacks and charged attacks to deal damage. The ice cone that exploded just now was the result of the second stage of Ludian shooting technique's accumulation of power. Hanzo obviously didn't expect that an ordinary arrow could have such an effect. He was directly hit by an ice pick, and the water in his body also directly changed from water to ice. However, Hanzo was very strong, and almost instantly, Hanzo got out of his frozen state. As Hanzo watched, the person who shot the arrow also walked to the stage. Who else could it be but Yusuke Mikami? Because of Yusuke's arrow, Hanzo stopped making seals. Taking advantage of this gap, Tsunade took off all the detonating talismans stuck to his legs. Yusuke walked from behind the three of them to the front of them, facing Hanzo directly, and even had time to make a joke. There is a saying that a three-person team usually has 4 people. I don't know if you have heard of it. Boring. Seeing that the ultimate target of his trip had also returned, Hanzo directly chose to use his invincible ultimate move on the spot. Hanzo of the Salamander is famous not just because of the poisonous sac of the Sansho fish in Hanzo's body. Also because of his summoning beast. His summoning beast is also a mountain pepper fish, and this mountain pepper fish is also highly poisonous. Summoning technique, Sansho fish Ibushi. When the Sansho fish appeared, he did not forget to add special effects. The purple poisonous gas began to spread directly from the Sansho fish's body. At an extremely fast speed, he rushed out of the space left by ordinary ninjas for the 4 of them. Ninjas who were exposed to these poisonous gases showed symptoms of poisoning almost instantly. Whether it's a Konoha shinobi or a Rain shinobi wearing a gas mask, as long as they come into contact, they will all be infected. Yusuke retracted his bow and arrow. The next battle would be a close combat stage, so Yusuke directly changed to a two-handed sword with an incorrect style. The end of the wolf, the red blade, the sharp shape. Holding such a sword, Yusuke felt that his aura had increased 8 degrees. At the same time, a pair of eyes stared at Hanzo. It's okay if you hit others, but if you hit my wife, I'll get angry with you. Just when Yusuke was about to shout a few words to Hanzo, 3 loud noises suddenly came from behind Yusuke. Yusuke looked back, somewhat dumbfounded. No, there are 3 of you, each with an extra large summoning beast. Let's just say, is there a possibility that you will make me look stupid like this? Jiraiya stood on the head of the giant Gamabunta, Orochimaru also called out all the snakes and stood on the head of the all snakes, and Tsunade stood on the head of the huge Katsuyu. These 3 are the summoning beasts of the 3. As for which one I'm most familiar with, it's probably Gamabunta. After all, apart from Jiraiya, Bunta is the one whom 4th generation and Prince summon the most, and that is Bunta. But from Yusuke's perspective, apart from not liking him for being a toad, the biggest problem with Gamabunta is that he is not a bullfrog. Just like that, the situation on the battlefield changed directly. Hanzo stood on the Sanshou fish, facing off against the 3 people standing on their respective summoning beasts. As for Yusuke below, should I let that thing out? After all, he has never been released, so Yusuke is still a little worried. Yusuke, leave it to us. Tsunade stood on top of Katsuyu with high spirits and shouted to Yusuke, who was still standing in front of the 3 of them. Tsunade's shout made Yusuke take back his thoughts. No problem. If they want to fight, just let them fight first. There's no problem in plundering the formation yourself. There is a high probability that he still has a chance to take action. Summoningmon fights Summoningmon, and it was Tsunade and the 3 who took the initiative to fight, so Yusuke used the body flicker technique to get directly behind the 3 of them. Hide your good things first. Although Tsunade and the others are very powerful, this result, there should be a high probability that it will develop towards the famous scene of Sannin in the plot. Because there is still a certain gap in combat effectiveness. In fact, this is indeed the case. Yusuke could only watch the battle from behind a few people. Because of the existence of Summoning Beast, this basically means that it is difficult for both sides to enter into a close confrontation. Summoning beasts were fighting at the bottom, while people were throwing ninjutsu at each other above. But in terms of distance and distance, this is Tsunade's flaw area. Most of Tsunade's skills are ninjutsu based on his own strange power talent, as well as some modified versions of medical ninjutsu, but these ninjutsu have a flaw, that is, they are all melee skills. So the main combat power is still Orochimaru and Jiraiya. But Hanzo is also very strong in ninjutsu. He has been immersed in it for so many years. He doesn't dare to declare war on the 3 major powers at the same time without any skills. The confrontation between the 2 sides became more and more intense, and Yusuke was enjoying watching it. Not only people fight against each other, but also giant summoning beasts fight against each other. This is not the same feeling as fighting against ordinary ninjas. Yusuke also understood why he once liked watching Ultraman, because the sense of power that burst out in the battle between giants was completely different from the feeling of fighting against normal sizes. Wow, Wentai's punch is beautiful. As an audience member, Yusuke couldn't help but express his voice as an audience member. Just when it was exciting to watch, Yusuke's perception ability came into play. Yusuke tilted his head and looked towards the hilltop he occupied before. Although the distance was a bit far away, Yusuke could clearly see the 3 children. A little girl with purple hair, a little boy with orange hair, and a little boy with red hair and bangs that completely covered his eyes. Aha, Rain Shinobi 3 little ones. Konan, Yahiko, Nagato. Yusuke knew that after the battle with Danzo and after Sannin was given the name, he would meet the 3 people who had just lost the battle in a cave. At this point, the love-hate relationship between Rain Shinobi and Jiraiya has begun. Unexpectedly, these 3 children actually ran to the edge of the battlefield at this time. This is courageous enough. Yahiko, why do I feel like that person is looking at us? On the top of the mountain, Konan pulled Yahiko's sleeve, pointed in the direction of Yusuke, and asked Yahiko. But he is covered with bandages, so he must be blind, right? Yahiko scratched his head and stared at the bandage on Yusuke's eyes in confusion. Nagato, who has always said very little, expressed his thoughts at this moment. Is it possible that he is pretending? In fact, he is not blind. Due to the distance, Yusuke couldn't hear the exchanges between several people. If I knew Yusuke heard this, he would definitely give a thumbs up and say with emotion, I'm afraid you've never been too open-minded. Even if you're not blind, you shouldn't be able to see anything if you cover your eyes, right? It can't be that the bandage is actually one-sided. It looks like a bandage to us, but he can actually see it himself. Yahiko scratched his head and said this like a joke. Yusuke, you also deserve my thumbs up. If you say a few more words, I'm afraid my underwear will be stripped off. I also feel that he is looking at us. How about the three of us leave first? Nagato didn't know why he felt the same as Conan. Okay, let's go first, it's really too dangerous here. The leader Yahiko spoke, and the three children quickly left the battlefield. Feeling that the three children had left, Yusuke turned his attention back to the battlefield. Anyway, there is a high probability that we will bump into each other soon. I was just doing a serious raid, and I wasn't here to watch a show. As the protagonist, he naturally has to wait for the right time to appear. The battle with Summoningmon continued for a while, and the two sides regained distance. It's not that three people can't bear it, but that three summoning beasts can't bear it. I'm going to die, this fish is too poisonous. The huge Katsuyu began to radiate anxiety. It's a rare opportunity for the three of us to appear together. We can't even catch a fish, right? Wentai's toad face was also full of worry. All the snakes under Orochimaru glanced at the two summoning beasts. HMPH, 2 oil bottles. Smelly snake, what do you mean? Stop making trouble and come again. Sancho fish poison can be said to be effective against most summoning beasts. Jiraiya's Gamabunta and Orochimaru's Banya are both in their youth now, and their strength has not yet reached its peak. These two summoning beasts, if you have to classify them, are actually warrior types. Defensive abilities are also armor to defend against physical attacks. As for Sancho fish, what it deals is not physical damage, but poison, which is the existence that maximizes magic damage. In this case, the role of physical defense is very limited. As for Wet Nurse Katsuyu, Katsuyu's ability is to heal injuries, but this injury is actually broken down into internal injuries and external injuries. Do you have the ability to detoxify? Yes, but it's very limited. Katsuyu is really unable to handle the poison of Sancho fish, which is the pinnacle of the ninja world. It was the same embarrassing situation as Wanshi and Wentai. After they separated, they fought again, but during the fight, Sanchoyu also did not attack normally. It was also a little annoyed when facing the three summoning beasts, so it directly used its attacks. The thick purple poisonous mist hit Bunta and three other summoning beasts head-on. Faced with the spread of poisonous gas, the three summoning beasts, after trying hard for 5 minutes, couldn't bear it anymore and turned into a puff of white smoke and exited. The three brothers ran directly. The three of Jiraiya also fell directly to the ground. At this time, Sanjaoyu's ultimate move had improved again and could be released. He has even begun to accumulate strength in his own mouth, reaching the point where he can spit it out from his mouth with just one final kick. Hanzo looked at the three people who no longer had Summoningmon, and said condescendingly, this battle is probably the victory of the Konoha shinobi. So I'll let you go. Of course, I am not without conditions. You need to hand over Yusuke Mikami. Otherwise, the poison in the mouth of the Sancho fish is enough to kill the three of you, as well as all the Konoha shinobi present. Jiraiya was about to retort, but a strange voice directly suppressed Jiraiya's words. Ouch! Ow! The sudden howl of a wolf almost shocked everyone on the battlefield. Howling. There should be no such creatures as wolves in Rain Shinobi Village, right? After being stunned by the howling wolf, an even greater mental shock arrived on the battlefield. The ice arrow that went straight towards Hanzo was only seen by Hanzo and Jiraiya. But now, a blue stream of light hundreds or thousands of times larger than the ice arrow flew directly out of the distant woods and headed straight for the center of the battlefield. Everyone in the technical room stopped their movements and looked at the huge, meteor-like stream of light. The same goes for Hanzo. That stream of light was getting closer and closer to me. And this stream of light seems to be a wolf. Was this the thing that made the wolf howl just now? No, That's not right. Hanzo quickly realized something was wrong. This thing seems to be coming towards me. But when Hanzo thought of this, he was too late to make any moves. Boom! A huge sound came from the place where the claws of the giant ice wolf collided with the head of the sanpei fish. This is not the end. The ground was obviously full of water, but the moment the ice wolf landed, countless ice cubes seemed to have been smashed and blown away. Ice blast pounces. The swollen mouth of the mountain pepper fish until it was broken by the claw when it landed on the ground. Hanzo, standing on the head of the Sancho fish, couldn't help but feel a little lucky. Fortunately, the Sancho fish's mouth protrudes forward, and from where he stood, he was almost stepped on by this giant wolf. But Sanchoyu was not as lucky as Hanzo. The poison accumulated in his mouth erupted out uncontrollably. The purple mist was about to fill in front of the giant wolf and the person on top of the wolf. Sigh, the fallen leaves are falling. Obviously this ice wolf made a huge noise when it landed, but in the poisonous mist, this sound was still clearly audible. All weapons seem to be isolated by a hemisphere. And this hemisphere continues to grow. It's the wind. Orochimaru felt that what made up this hemisphere was the wind. It is also the wind that pushes these poisonous gases outwards. Manyo's elemental explosion. Manyo's sword. This knife directly dispersed all the poison sprayed by the Sancho fish outside the hemisphere blown by the wind. After stepping on the head of the Sancho fish, the blue ice wolf took 2 steps back. Hanzo also noticed at this time that there was a person above the wolf. She has long bright red hair and wears clothes that are obviously not from the shinobi world, but she can tell you have an aristocratic temperament at a glance. One hand held a large sword that looked like the bones of some huge animal. Standing on top of the wolf's head, he looked down at himself. Who are you? The man in the wolf's head had no intention of hiding anything, so he announced his family status. Arataki faction, hero of the night. Arataki faction. The 3 people behind Hanzo and Yusuke all shrank their pupils. After all, there are still many people discussing the matter of the country of Whirlpool and the Arataki sect, but now it has appeared again. And it seems that this person is not the same person who appeared in the kingdom of Whirlpool. The person last time was codenamed Justice, and the current one is called Dark Knight Hero. As for whether this person is the same person as the righteous man from last time, no one can be sure. Hanzo felt that he was not alone. After all, the righteous man did not show any special summoning beast last time. It is not ruled out that the last alliance was too weak, which made the opponent not want to use summoning beast. Orochimaru and Jiraiya had similar thoughts. Even when Tsunade heard the words Arataki sect, his face first looked thoughtful, and then his expression when he looked at the figure on the wolf's head became weird. After all, Yusuke explained to him what happened in Uzushio village, so he knew who the righteous person was last time. Therefore, this person should be. Yes, the person on the wolf's head is none other than Yusuke Mikami. In the world of Hokage, they are called the Arataki sect, and their names are also called Night Heroes. Only Yusuke would be interested in this. As for the wolf at Yusuke's feet. Boreas, the king wolf of the north wind and the lord of the running wolves. It was originally a world boss, the highest level boss. The first one should be called the Northern King, Andreus. One of the demon gods who participated in the Demon God War. 3,600 years ago, the Northern King, Andreus, once confronted the lone king of the tower. More than 1,000 years ago, Andreus and Ravenwood, the then Knight of the North Wind, wandered in the land of ice and snow, Mondstadt. Thousands of years before Teyvat, Ravenwood, the Knight of the North Wind, buried Andreus in Wolf Ridge. As for Boreas, it was Andreus who was willing to use ice and wind to reappear in form and provide trials for travelers from other worlds. The color of Boreas's body is white and ice blue, with long dark blue hair from the top of his head to his back, and 3 long eyebrows, glowing with light blue, flying in the air like dragon whiskers. The summoning beast and the Sancho fish at Hanzo's feet successfully explained what the difference in appearance is. As for why he appeared here, it was drawn in a lottery. Now that even the world boss can be extracted, Yusuke himself cannot imagine what kind of weird things this system will create for him in the future. For example, what about Paimon? Zhongli's magical outfit. The North Wind Wolf King and Zhou Ben's boss have already been drawn, so can the God of Thunder Zhou Ben's Fujin Yujian Mingming divine life be drawn? Can the young master with the Demon King's armament draw it? Can the God of Opportunity be drawn? It would be cool if the God of Opportunity could drive it by himself. Of course, this is all Yusuke's imagination. Yusuke also has a hard time defining whether this thing is a summoning mon or not. Because this thing has no consciousness, it will listen to its own orders, and it can also fight for it with AI. From this perspective, he is a bit like a puppet. All these contents went through Yusuke's mind in a short period of time. The situation on the battlefield is also changing rapidly. Hanzo thought of the incident in which Arataki sent the righteous men to kill the coalition forces before, so he made a quick judgment and issued the order. Rain Shinobi, all ninjas, retreat. Orochimaru also realized what Hanzo was thinking and gave the same order. All ninjas in Konoha, retreat. After receiving the order, the ninjas on both sides quickly ran towards their camps. The current situation on the battlefield is no longer something they can participate in. Tsunade, aren't you leaving? Jiraiya and Orochimaru were also ready to run away. After all, this Dark Knight hero looked like he was here to find Hanzo. Tsunade was completely different from the tense posture of the other two, and Orochimaru even felt a little relaxed from her. Even eager to try. The eagerness to climb onto Andrea's head. What's the hurry? Sit here and watch for a while. With the retreat of Rain Shinobi, Hanzo's alertness became more and more obvious. Ordinary ninjas who are afraid that the Night Hero will suddenly rise up and attack themselves or Rain Shinobi. The Konoha Shinobi and Rain Shinobi all left, and the clearing was completed. The other party did not attack. But Hanzo still didn't let down his guard. From beginning to end, the opponent never looked at the three Konoha Shinobi behind him. Even though the wolf paced around for a long time, the red-haired man above the wolf only stared at him from beginning to end. Now that Rain Shinobi's ninjas have withdrawn, Hanzo finally couldn't bear it anymore and shouted to Yusuke on the wolf's head with a voice full of anger but suppressed. What exactly do you want to do? Aren't you known as the demigod of the ninja world? I just want to compete with you. Hanzo is waiting for people to leave, and Yusuke is also waiting for people to leave. Anyway, the shadow clone he left behind was heading towards the camp with Konoha's large army. The alibi has been prepared, and now I can use it as I wish. Yusuke originally thought that Orochimaru would take the two of them farther away, but he would not leave directly. Instead, he would hide from a distance and watch him and Hanzo fight. But there's nothing wrong with staying. Then come on. Since the other party said so, Hanzo didn't think he had any reason to retreat. Just like what this man said. He is a demigod in the ninja world. Swordsmanship. Chain sickle double strike. The Sanshou fish was still accumulating toxins, so Hanzo took the lead in attacking with the ninja scythe in his hand. The scythe in Hanzo's hand has a long chain hanging from its tail. The chain had already slipped out of Yusuke's hand, and went straight to wrap around the weapon in Yusuke's hand. Because of its shape, the Kai bone sword is actually very easy to get entangled in the chain, and it is difficult to get rid of it after being entangled. But this was actually what Yusuke had expected. The weight of the rock is reassuring. Noel's skill was released, and a sharp-edged shield appeared, directly blocking the chain thrown by Hanzo. After unleashing Manyo's ultimate move, Yusuke cut out the Kai bone sword. This is for the passive function of the stacked Kai bone sword. Having escaped the fate of a wolf before, Yusuke was afraid that he would be immediately recognized when he took it out, so he finally chose the Kai bone sword. An artifact among the 4-star two-handed swords. Weapon skill. Breaking waves. When the character is on the field, the damage dealt is increased by 10% and the damage received by 2% every 4 seconds. This effect can be stacked up to 5 times and will not be reset when the character exits the field. After receiving damage, the effect will be reduced by 1 level. Counting the chat with Hanzo just now, I have already filled up the passive stack in 20 seconds. The strength of this sword is that although there is a debuff that will increase the damage you receive, when it is fully stacked, the damage will be directly increased by 50%, which is still very strong. So to use this sword, either use a shield or have full dodge points. Now that the shield is on, since Hanzo wants to compete with him in swordsmanship, Yusuke also wants strength in confrontation, so he chooses to rush towards Hanzo as well. The sickle collided with the two-handed sword, but at this time, one of Hanzo's advantages was highlighted. Hanzo Taijutsu's attack frequency is very high. In other words, the attack speed is very fast. But now, I use a two-handed sword, and my attack speed is very slow. This also leads to the fact that Yusuke can make one slash, and Hanzo can make 3 cuts. Yusuke can resist Hanzo's 2 slashes with the sword in his hand, and the remaining one can only be resisted by the shield. Although the shield exists, it will not be broken before the existence time is exhausted because the upper limit of damage is exceeded. But in general, using a big sword by yourself will undoubtedly be at a disadvantage. The big sword didn't work, and there was no one on the field, so Yusuke started playing tricks. The Kai bone sword is pointed overall and can stab. But because the sword body is relatively long and it is a heavy two-handed sword, the forward swing of the stab is quite long. This is where the flaw appeared. Is this really a flaw deliberately exposed by the other party? Just when Hanzo was hesitating whether to attack or not, Hanzo's intuition sent his own warning to Hanzo at this moment. Back off. Back off. Yusuke still maintained the stabbing posture, and Hanzo directly controlled his body to retreat back. Under Hanzo's gaze, the knife in Yusuke's hand had turned into a spear. The tip of the spear almost hit Hanzo's shoulder. Polearms are elements that are easily associated with oneself, so this is also the benefit of all personnel retreating. You can play as you like. But there was no feeling of touching an entity above the tip of the gun. Hanzo actually reacted. To be honest, Yusuke didn't expect Hanzo to be able to dodge this move. Hanzo retreated and retreated directly to the ground. Yusuke also got off Andrea's head and was on the ground with Hanzo. Andreus vs. Senshoyu, Yusuke vs. Hanzo, the battlefield is now divided. Now that we have all dealt with pole weapons, it is natural to have some attack methods with pole weapons. Standing on the wall 1,000 feet tall. Zhongli's elemental combat skill, Earth Core. A ridge appears. Yu Zhong's shield appears. Cut out the one-handed sword Sword of Dawn. Bloom. Albedo's elemental combat skill, Creation Method Fake Yanghua. Hanzo felt as if his body had been hit hard by a boulder. The resonance of the rock ridge is triggered, and Yanghua causes the flower of the moment to bloom, bringing a large amount of rock element damage. The two people's elemental combat skills are over, and the preparation phase is also over. Logically speaking, Xingqiu's skills should also be added. But this is the land of rain, and it is raining heavily now. There is no need to use Xingqiu's skills, the rain in the sky can bring evaporation to each of his attacks. My first 5-star, Walnut, Teyvat's first Fire Sea. Today we will face the demigod of the ninja world. Although the moment when the flower of Setsuna bloomed and exploded caused a lot of damage, Hanzo still recovered. At this time, Yusuke changed back to the spear, a green spear. And Puyuan. Red flames also appeared on the gun, and the flames were still burning brightly in the rain. Hutao, elemental combat skill, Butterfly attracts the next life. I can't lose yet. For Rain Shinobi Village, I can't lose yet. Hanzo roared in his heart, and the only eyes that showed on his face were the fire burning in his heart. The two sides fought together again. In a very short period of time, the two sides completed countless confrontations. No one retreated, and it was so fast that Tsunade and others could no longer see clearly how the weapons between the two were used. All that can be seen is the light of the flying swords and the firelight that should not appear under the rain. After fighting for a while, the two pulled away and resumed their stances. Last resort, Orochimaru looked at the two separated people and said, Jiraiya is a little confused. Hanzo hasn't used poison yet, and neither of them has used a powerful ninjutsu. Is this going to be the end? Hanzo's poison is useless. There is always a wind around this person's body. Hanzo's poison cannot enter this person's body. As for ninjutsu, Rain Shinobi Village is a small ninjutsu village, so Hanzo's own ninjutsu is actually not particularly high. The two of them were already approaching, beyond the limit that Orochimaru's eyes could track. He couldn't see clearly anyway, so Orochimaru simply put some thought into explaining it to Jiraiya. When Hanzo was with the three of him just now, he had many powerful ninjutsu that he could use, but when he didn't use them, Orochimaru saw this. But honestly, it's useless. Hanzo was able to overwhelm the three of them just by relying on what he had shown. On the battlefield, both Yusuke and Hanzo realized that the next step was the last move. In the eyes of the two people, The rain, which was poured down directly from a basin of water, began to become white and tender intermittently. Both sides have reasons why they cannot lose. The first step was taken almost at the same time, and the distance became shorter and shorter. The rain is falling slower and slower, and the opponent's movements are getting slower and slower. There was no smoke or explosion. The movements of the two people were frozen in the rain. In the eyes of Sanin, everything happened in a blink of an eye, but in the eyes of Hanzo and Yusuke, countless confrontations happened in that instant. Hanzo threw out the scythe in the middle, and successfully shattered his own shield by taking advantage of the fact that the shield was around Yusuke's body and had a physical presence. And pulled the scythe back, just when it was about to pull Yusuke. Hanzo watched as Yusuke's body turned into a bunch of butterflies. Finally, the body reunited into Yusuke's body, and at this time, the sickle has returned to his hand. Next, Hanzo, swordsmanship, II/. Although Hanzo uses a scythe, he can still kill it with DII. He once used this move to defeat Mifune of the Iron Country. Yusuke, Walnut's normal attack followed by a heavy attack. Normal attacks block II/, and heavy attacks cause damage. The two people switched positions, but they were heading in the same direction, towards Yusuke's previous position. The spear in Yusuke's hand was already placed on Hanzo's shoulder. Very close to the neck. Did I lose? Even though the spear placed on his shoulder only felt part of the gravity, Hanzo himself, for some reason, felt that his bent knees could not straighten up. Fate is unpredictable. Hanzo sighed, his voice calm, even with a bit of relief. I lost, kill me. But what responded to him was that the only gravity on his shoulders also disappeared. Hanzo turned around in surprise. I'm here to fight you, not to kill you. After putting away the gun handsomely, Yusuke walked from behind Hanzo to the front of Hanzo. If I wanted to kill you, the last attack wouldn't have done this little damage. If I kill you, Rain Shinobi Village will completely exist in name only and be eaten away by other countries. When that time comes, I think you know better than me what the common people of Rain Country will look like. After all, you are the shadow of Rain Shinobi. Hanzo had disbelief in his eyes. Although I have no intention of chasing deer, I know the suffering of the people. Zhongli, your words are so cool, I'll use them. What should be placed on your shoulders has never been my gun, but your responsibility as a Kage, as a demigod in the ninja world. Patting Hanzo on the shoulder, Yusuke stood up and shouted to Andreus, who was enjoying torturing the Sancho fish, let's go. Andreus quickly ran to Yusuke, and Yusuke jumped on the wolf's head and turned into a stream of light again. Just like the initial fall. There are only 4 people left on the field, but these 4 people have no intention of fighting at this time. Hanzo glanced at the 3 of them, then looked at the direction Yusuke left, took back the Sancho fish, and walked towards the direction of Rain Shinobi Village. The 3 people who witnessed everything also chose to leave the battlefield after Hanzo left. Start moving in the direction of Konoha Station. It's raining heavily again, let's take a rest there. Jiraiya pointed to a cave and asked the other 2 for their opinions. Good. The 3 of them found a place where they could sit down and lean on. Jiraiya took out a few pieces of dry bread. The 3 of them replenished their energy while keeping their eyes empty. Everyone looked thoughtful. Everything that happened today is so unreal. The Arataki faction. I didn't expect to meet them here again. Do you think Hanzo will spread the news that he was defeated by the Arataki faction after he returns? No one can predict the psychology of Hanzo, who just lost a game. The 3 fell into silence for a while. In the entire cave, there was only the sound of the rain outside and the sound of the 3 people chewing. Moxie. Orochimaru and Jiraiya reacted instantly, their muscles began to tighten, and their entire bodies took on a defensive posture. The echo of the sound dissipated, and a tense atmosphere began to fill the small hole. I'm here, what are you doing over there? Orochimaru and Jiraiya turned back instantly, their pupils shrinking instantly. Red hair, black luxurious clothes, the only difference is that the blue wolf summoning beast is not there. Heroes of the night. At this time, the hero of the night was standing behind Tsunade. But Tsunade stopped chewing dry bread and said casually, I'm hungry. Orochimaru, Jiraiya, PFF'd. Just like Jiraiya and Orochimaru's question, this time they couldn't hold back their laughter. But this made Orochimaru and Jiraiya even more confused. What's going on? Why do you two look like you can't hold back your laughter? Okay, stop making trouble. Look, you scared the two of them. Yusuke stopped playing around, released the transformation technique, and walked from behind Tsunade to Tsunade's side. There is also a steaming cup of Safang piece in my hand. Yusuke, Orochimaru and Jiraiya both looked at Yusuke with shocked expressions. Both of them felt that their worldview had been affected to a certain extent. Tsunade indulged in eating, and Yusuke smiled and asked the two of them, "How is it, are you surprised or not? I know you have a lot of questions, but don't rush it yet. Have some food first, I'll talk to you two slowly after you have eaten." Fine, Orochimaru agreed. Seeing this, Jiraiya also took the Shifang piece and started eating. After all, it was raining outside, so Yusuke took out another serving of radish and vegetable soup and placed it between the three of them. After placing the things, Yusuke looked behind some stone pillars in the direction of the cave entrance and shouted to the back, "Come out, eat something together, and hide it as long as you want." Orochimaru and Jiraiya looked in the direction Yusuke was looking. A little boy with orange hair peeked out from behind a pillar. Less than half of the boy's face was illuminated by the light from outside. As for the other half, in contrast to the light, it was completely occupied by darkness. Not to mention, at first glance, the appearance of this appearance seems to be a bit like a villain. After they were completely out of the shadows, they finally saw the young man's face clearly. He is about the same age as Nawaki. He has short orange hair and a pair of big eyes with vigilance. Yahiko. If this name isn't familiar. Pain was his later name. Yahiko walked up to the four of them and tried to shout to them in a voice that was neither humble nor condescending, "Please give us some food." Tsunade, Yusuke, and Orochimaru didn't speak. Tsunade and Orochimaru felt a little offended, but Yusuke just wanted to watch the show. After all, this section is still very classic. The encounter between Jiraiya and the three-range shinobi. "Where are your parents?" Jiraiya looked at the boy in front of him and asked Yahiko. "Killed by ninjas in the war." Having just experienced a war, Jiraiya now has a new understanding of war. Especially the corpses left on the battlefield after everyone left. A sentence suddenly popped into Jiraiya's mind. The hero of the night, or what Yusuke said to Hanzo. "Although I have no intention of chasing deer, I know the suffering of the people. Not only ninjas died in the war, but also countless unarmed civilians." Jiraiya's eyes showed a bit of tenderness. After thinking about this, Jiraiya dug around himself, but in the end, he only took out 2 small packages of dry bread. "I only have a little dry bread." Jiraiya not only looked at Yahiko and said it, but also said it to Yusuke. So there was a little bit of prayer in Jiraiya's tone. "Let me do it." Yusuke started to take out things, and of course he did not forget to ask Yahiko to call out his 2 companions, also, "Your 2 companions should come out too." Jiraiya's conversation just now made Yahiko pay all his attention to Jiraiya. When Yusuke spoke, he thought of Yusuke, the person who had just discovered him. "Nagato, Konan, come out. He doesn't seem to be a bad person." Along with Yahiko's shout, 2 figures also walked out from where Yahiko came out just now. A little girl with purple hair, and a little red-haired boy with long bangs. "Come here, what are you talking about just standing there stupidly? Come here and join us. Before we eat, would you like to introduce yourself to us?" The food was brought out, but Yusuke did not rush to give it to the 3 people, but asked first. "My name is Yahiko." After all, Yahiko was the first to come out, and among the 3, he also played the role of the big brother. "My name is Nagato." "My name is Konan." The remaining little boys and girls introduced themselves one by one. The 3 children introduced themselves one after another. As the most popular disciple among all Hokage, Jiraiya wanted to touch the heads of these 3 children. "Then let's eat something together. How's it going? Is it delicious?" Ever since he drew Xiangling, Yusuke's craftsmanship has finally reached a level that can be compared with the wine he mixes. "In the past, when I was drinking, I always felt that the food I cooked was almost boring. There won't be such a problem now. Except occasionally, I have the urge to add weird things to my meals." "How's it going? Is it delicious? Tasty?" The 3 children answered in unison. "If it tastes good, eat more." After the meal was finished, several people finished sharing the dry bread Jiraiya had taken out before. During the meal, Yusuke felt that Orochimaru looked at him several times. It was obvious that he wanted to ask something, but due to the three children and his own difficulty in organizing words, he always opened his mouth slightly and looked at Yusuke. Then he turned back helplessly. This was repeated several times until Yusuke felt uncomfortable. He directly put his arms around Orochimaru's neck and said in Orochimaru's ear, "If you have anything you want to ask me, I'll find a chance to talk to you later." After eating, the rain subsided a little, and the four of them set foot on the road back to the camp again. But halfway through the journey, the three little ones were still following Yusuke and the others. Orochimaru was thinking about where to start asking Yusuke. Tsunade and Tsunade focused most of their attention on each other, leaving Jiraiya to focus most of his attention on the three little ones behind him. "Is there anything else you three have to do?" Jiraiya suddenly stopped and asked the three Yahikos. Before the leader, Yahiko, could answer, Konan walked from behind Yahiko to the front of the three, and put his hands behind him, as if he wanted to take something out. Although Konan's posture with his hands behind his back made the three of Jiraiya subconsciously alert, when they saw what Konan took out from behind, their hearts were still wrapped in a special kind of warmth. 2 paper roses. Thank you, this is a return gift. There was originally only 1 paper rose, but here it became 2. Although Yusuke gave them the food, it was Jiraiya who agreed to them in the first place. So Jiraiya 1 flower. The food was given by Yusuke, who also had a flower. "I like this gift very much. You are worthy of being an angel in the future," Yusuke patted Konan's head and praised. "I like it too." At this time, Yahiko came to the front and shouted to the 4 Yusukes, "Can you teach us ninjutsu? You are the ninjas of Konoha, right?" Yusuke remembers the original plot very clearly. At this time, Orochimaru asked a question. "Want to kill?" And the original plot also included an explanation for why Orochimaru said that. "I have seen many orphans, and their fate was very miserable. It would be better for these children to simply kill them here." But now Orochimaru has no intention of saying any of this. What's this? This is a showcase of the results of the Orochimaru strategy. And Jiraiya, who stood at the front of the 4, replayed what happened this year before his eyes. The suffering of common people. Isn't this part of the suffering of the common people? I want to stay here and teach them. Jiraiya seemed to be talking to himself, which shocked Tsunade and Orochimaru. And Jiraiya also expressed his reasons. Everything that happened today means that Rain Shinobi's offensive will slow down. I shouldn't be needed on the front line for the time being. Wait until they can stand on their own feet, and think of it as atonement for the war. Chapter 81. Do you 3 agree? I promise. Yahiko was the first to agree, followed closely by Nagato and Konan. We agree. Jiraiya smiled and touched the heads of the 3 children. He stood up and planned to tell Yusuke to let the 3 of them return to the camp first. But after Jiraiya stood up, Yusuke walked to the 3 children and squatted down, asking the leader Yahiko, "Do you have a place to live?" "There's a little house." Yahiko nodded doubtfully, wondering why Yusuke asked this. "Since you have agreed to accept Jiraiya as your master, then as your master's friends, we will visit your home with your master. Do you agree?" Yusuke's question made Yahiko a little confused, wondering what Yusuke's plan was. But after thinking for a moment, he still took the initiative to answer, "Promise." Yahiko can be sure that the people in front of him should be good people. This is not a blind trust, but a conclusion drawn from the experience he has accumulated after surviving in troubled times for a long time. "Then let the 3 of us go to your house and have a little rest. What do you think?" "But, it's okay." Yusuke stood up with a smile, and Orochimaru walked up to Yusuke at this time. "Over there at the camp." Yusuke waved his hand, interrupted Orochimaru's words, and said to Orochimaru, "Hanzo is also injured now, and he was beaten by me, so he will not take the initiative to attack. Over at the camp, I got an extra shadow clone to look like you. He will take care of the overall situation for you." Orochimaru still felt a little awkward, but after Yusuke said so, Orochimaru finally nodded. After reassuring Orochimaru, Yusuke looked at Tsunade again. "I've also transformed into a clone of you. Don't worry about the wounded. I'll take care of it for you." Tsunade would definitely not give up the wounded, so after fighting Hanzo, Yusuke divided 2 shadow clone back to the camp. Just 2, Orochimaru and Tsunade. Not for Jiraiya, because Yusuke knew from the beginning that Jiraiya would choose to stay. In Jiraiya's heart, he felt a debt of gratitude to the people who lost their homes during the war. We'll let Jiraiya make such a decision. After walking together for a while, Yusuke also understood why these three little ones were walking behind the four of them. Been fussing for a long time, by the way. Yahiko took the lead and ushered everyone into the house. This house is not far from the fighting range and even has a bright red roof. But even so, this house has not been discovered yet. I think the abilities of Konoha's reconnaissance ninjas are a little too subpar. I told you that I came here to take a rest, so don't talk about work. Yusuke patted Orochimaru on the shoulder and followed Jiraiya into the house. There is only one room, but the space is not too small, and it is not very crowded for 7 people. It's very nice, it feels like home. Yusuke looked around, gave Yahiko a thumbs up and praised them. Want to drink? Tsunade was in front of the table, and as soon as he sat down cross-legged, he said to Yusuke. Where are you two? Come on a little too, just to warm yourself up. Jiraiya and Orochimaru were also aroused by Tsunade's words. The battlefield is busy all day long, and such an opportunity to take a break from the busy schedule is really rare. A glass of wine for each person, and Yusuke certainly did not forget to give Konan 3 people a cup of fruit tea each. Thanks. Don't be formal here. This is your home. If you are so formal, I will be embarrassed as a guest. Good. Konan nodded and took a sip of the fruit tea handed over by Yusuke. As soon as he took a sip, Konan's eyes turned bright. It tastes good, and it's still hot. It's amazing. If it tastes good, drink more. There will still be some left after you drink it. Really? Of course. Konan, I see your bones are amazing. Do you want to follow me? Follow Jiraiya. Tsunade had just taken 2 sips of wine, and he was mentally alert. After Konan's series of cute actions just now, he took the initiative to start chatting and said to Konan. When Jiraiya heard this, he became angry. Why, Tsunade, this is obviously my apprentice. As the two quarreled, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. In this small room, Yusuke also felt an atmosphere that he had not felt for a long time. As expected, it was still too long to leave Konoha and leave the angel's gift. But Yusuke also realized that such an atmosphere could not only be felt in Konoha. As the atmosphere gets better, the drinks go down faster. After a while, both Tsunade and Jiraiya fell asleep directly on the table. Yahiko's 3 children have not even practiced chakra refining yet. Today was a battlefield and a cave. They were already exhausted and fell asleep one by one. Yusuke put a coat on Tsunade, tilted his head, and saw the only person who was still awake. Orochimaru. Orochimaru sat opposite him, looking at the small window behind him, looking at the slightly lighter rain outside. Yusuke stood up, walked over to Orochimaru, and touched his shoulder. Orochimaru was startled, and when he tilted his head, he saw Yusuke, his eyes full of confusion. Yusuke pointed to the door to Orochimaru and motioned for Orochimaru to go out together. Although it was Yusuke who called Orochimaru out, when the two sat down on the steps outside the house, it was Orochimaru who asked Yusuke a question first. Do you think highly of these children? Orochimaru saw everything that happened today, and naturally noticed something was wrong. So be it. Orochimaru felt that he was a little unsure of Yusuke's answer. Yusuke originally planned to tell Orochimaru another thing, but since Orochimaru took the initiative to mention these children, Yusuke became interested in this topic. No one knows what they will experience in the future, what will happen in the future, whether they will die in war, die in conspiracy, or die of normal old age. The butterfly effect has always existed. Even if Yusuke knew the plot, at this moment, Yusuke did not dare to define the future. Like the wind, no one knows where they will stop in the future. But at the same time, you don't know whether one of these 3 children will be the wind that pushes the entire ninja world forward. Orochimaru could tell that Yusuke focused on the second half of the sentence. You think so highly of them. Pushing the entire ninja world forward, this evaluation is not low. At least someone of Hanzo's level might be able to push the ninja world forward. I'm just giving an example. Who knows what will happen in the future? Orochimaru wanted to roll his eyes, while Yusuke looked into the distance. Tell me honestly, when you found out they were war orphans, did you ever think about killing them? Yusuke's tone was a little more serious when he asked this question. Orochimaru shook his head. At this moment, Yusuke was so moved that he wanted to cry. You see, the Pua tactics and efforts I have persisted with for so long have not been in vain. I didn't have the need to kill them at the time. They were the wind. I didn't have the need to imprison the wind there. They would blow themselves to where they should go. Just like you said, let the wind lead, the three of them, maybe someone can really push the ninja world forward. No one knows what the future will bring. After Orochimaru said this, he looked away from the distance, looked at Yusuke and asked, is there any more wine? Have. Giving Orochimaru a glass, Yusuke took out a glass himself and took a sip. This time Orochimaru didn't speak, and Yusuke brought the topic back to what he wanted to do in the beginning. The ninja world is like a windmill, it needs wind to push it, and Konoha is not a windmill. Orochimaru had a vague guess about what Yusuke wanted to talk about. After thinking for a moment, Orochimaru gave his answer, isn't Konoha moving forward now? Yusuke rolled his eyes. No, we have this relationship, and you are still talking nonsense with me, right? Do you know the Senju clan? Of course I know. Then do you know how many members of the Senju clan are left now? After a long moment of silence, Orochimaru gave his answer, 2. The reason why he held it in for a long time before speaking out was mainly because Orochimaru also realized the problem. The Senju clan was dismantled according to the purpose of the first generation, transformed into civilians and integrated into Konoha. But the ending is that the second generation has only been dead for more than 20 years, and the only Senju clan left now are Tsunade and Nawaki, who are directly related to the first generation. To say that there is nothing fishy here is pure nonsense. And this must have something to do with the current top management of Konoha. Now that Orochimaru has understood what he wants to say to him, Yusuke no longer needs to hide it and directly makes the topic clear. The current high-level officials of Konoha have become rotten. They can no longer be called the wind. The decay of high-rise buildings is not necessarily the decay of the Hokage. Orochimaru just retorted, but Yusuke shut up Orochimaru with just one sentence, who gave the order to transfer Hanzo to the front line of range shinobi as a commander. It's third generation. After the last Mito funeral, Tsunade returned to the village and submitted a request to the third generation project to strengthen medical ninja training and encourage medical ninjas, but it was directly rejected. I didn't even come to the Hokage, but I was directly rejected by Udatain Kaharu, who is in charge of the medical department. This incident was supposed to be a Jonin meeting, but it turned out that only Kato Dan supported Tsunade's part. As a result, after Yusuke gave some advice and Tsunade realized that Udatain Kaharu was an insurmountable hurdle, he took the initiative to submit a request. Although Yusuke was vaccinated in advance, Tsunade was still depressed about it for a long time. As for why the first time, only Kato Dan himself supported. Simply because there are few examples. There is only one such case, Nawaki, who died due to poor medical standards on the battlefield. In fact, the proposal was finally passed. But at that time, World War II was almost over. But at that time, you had the money to support this proposal, but now that the fight has just begun, you have no money to support it. In the final analysis, she simply thought that Udatain Kaharu did not want to spend the medical department's money. She had regarded the medical department as her private property. As for the benefits of seeing this happen, spend money on my medical department, or just invest, where will the benefits come from? They have become monolithic. They want to touch Danzo and Udatain Kaharu, so the third generation project is a hurdle that you can't get around, or a hurdle that you can't overcome based on your identity alone. You are just thinking about waiting for the wind to blow. Anyway, it is the wind you are waiting for. Why not let yourself become the wind that pushes forward? Why me? Why can't it be you? Orochimaru was silent again. Why can't it be me? After a long while, Orochimaru raised his glass and said what he had always wanted to say in his heart, I will become a Hokage in an upright manner. So that Tsunade and I can live a beautiful life together. This is nothing. Orochimaru smiled relievedly and clinked glasses with Yusuke, each taking a sip. Of course, I also know that when Hokage is very tired, he will not have time to conduct various researches, so in order to compensate you, I am going to teach you something new. What? Yusuke stood up, looked around, and then saw a wilted flower on the ground, so he started and pulled off one of the branches. As a result, while picking up flowers, I also saw a Sancho fish and picked it up too. He walked up to Orochimaru and held up the dried flower. What do you see? A withered flower. Yusuke smiled, raised his hand slightly, and shook it. Under Orochimaru's gaze, Yusuke's hand, or the dry flower branch, flicked out little light balls as Yusuke waved. The flower branches no longer wither, the leaves grow, and then a flower bud appears on the branch. Slowly, bloom again. Is this some kind of trick? Yusuke said nothing, put the flower on Orochimaru's hand, and motioned Orochimaru to realize it on his own. This is a new life. What's this? Orochimaru's eyes brightened, looking at Yusuke with longing in his eyes. Alchemy. I drew albedo myself. This player always likes the special abilities gained by people whose names are suffixed with teacher. Alchemy. As the chief alchemist of Mondstadt, he single-handedly supports Mondstadt's ruthless alchemy skills. Albedo's alchemy skills are undoubtedly rare in the world. In other words, second only to his master. Albedo himself is actually an artificial human, created by his master through alchemy. Want to learn? Think. I'll teach you. Teach Orochimaru by himself. From then on, Orochimaru's son, Mitsuki, may not be a human created through cloning or other technologies, but an artificial human, created through alchemy technology. After I return to Konoha, I will teach you personally. Can. Having said all that needed to be said, Yusuke and Orochimaru returned to the house. Why did you bring the Sancho fish in? I'm going to try cooking with Sancho fish. Orochimaru frowned, his eyes filled with disgust. Can you eat that? Pufferfish can be eaten. What can't be eaten? Just remove the poison sac and it should be fine. You shouldn't have removed. I'm scared. Tsunade should be carrying an antidote. So, you met people from the Arataki sect during the conflict with Hanzo? Right. Tsunade nodded and agreed with the purpose of third generation. Arataki faction. Third generation muttered the purpose, but it was impossible to hear what his specific feelings were. Of course, this is not the third generation coming to the battlefield in person. I really want the Hokage to go to the front line. Generally, except for Cloud Shinobi, if other ninja villages are released, it means that the situation has reached a very serious point. So, it was actually Tsunade, Yusuke and Orochimaru who returned from the front line. This substitution on the front line is a normal procedure. After all, Yusuke's group stayed on the front line for a bit too long, and they were afraid of problems, so they would rotate ninjas regularly. But Orochimaru, Tsunade, Yusuke, and Jiraiya all occupy very important positions. If people in this position are replaced rashly, problems will easily occur. If there is a problem with this position, it will easily lead to big trouble. So several of them have been on the front line for a long time. The only abnormal thing about this substitution is that they were called back all at once. As for why this happens, of course it has something to do with the Arataki sect. Therefore, the three of them were pulled directly to the Hokage office as soon as they entered Konoha. Udatain Kaharu and Mitokado Homura are also there. Where is Elder Hanzo? Then Yusuke's first words when he entered the door made third generation and his two Hokage assistants unable to hold back. What are you doing with Hanzo? Long time no see. I miss you a little. Also, these ninjas who have withdrawn asked me to say hello to Elder Hanzo on their behalf. Mikami Yusuke, watch the way you speak. It's indeed a bit too arrogant. Udatain Kaharu and Mitokado Homura couldn't hold back after hearing what Yusuke said, and shouted to Yusuke in harmony. It's just a little short of standing up from the table. Facing the two men's questioning, Yusuke tilted his head and looked at Orochimaru, pretending to be stupid, and asked Yusuke. Orochimaru, you are smart, tell me, did I use the wrong word in greeting? Not at all. Orochimaru shook his head, but said in his heart, it's really painful to hold back laughter, ah. Yusuke asked Tsunade again, and Tsunade could only laugh crazily, and then shook his head, not really. Finally, Yusuke turned to look at Mitokado Homura and Udatain Kaharu. Excuse me, am I using the wrong word for greeting? Which word do you think I should use better? At this point, the two men finally shut their mouths. Are words the key? The key point is your tone, your tone. But both of them also felt that if they continued to spend time with Yusuke Mikami on this issue, they would definitely be the ones who would be angry in the end. So of the two people, one tilted his head and looked to the left, and the other tilted his head and looked to the right. Third generation was left embarrassed, looking left and right at the backs of the heads of his two friends. Ahem. The third generation project is still very clear. The most important thing today is to ask for information about the Arataki sect. Therefore, the third generation project did not even think of a peacemaker to mediate the relationship between the two parties this time, and directly got to the point and asked about the Arataki sect. The first time Uzushio village faced the coalition forces, this time it appeared on the Rain Shinobi battlefield. They have won a resounding victory every time, so third generation currently believes that the Arataki sect is the most important topic at this stage. At this point, things are back to the beginning. Orochimaru, as the commander-in-chief, appeared on the battlefield with the Night Heroes. Both sides withdrew their troops, and the Dark Knight Heroes beat Hanzo. Even the purpose of Heroes of the Night, and what he said after the fight were all told. It was the third generation project. As for what happens after defeating Hanzo, that was done by Yusuke Mikami. What does it have to do with Night Hero? So what Orochimaru said didn't have much psychological burden, and I discussed these with Yusuke, so these are all things that can be said. After listening, third generation fell into a long silence and asked Orochimaru, Orochimaru, what do you think of this Arataki sect? Sit. Orochimaru originally wanted to sit and watch, but he soon realized something was wrong. Yusuke always says this. As for me, I feel like the person I met is not the same person as the person from Uzushio village. According to the information from Uzushio village, the righteous man they met at that time had a bit of a bad temper. He first said he wouldn't fight, but then turned around and dealt with the coalition forces. As for the person we met this time, although he said that he beat Hanzo because Hanzo's name was the ninja demigod and he wanted to challenge him, it can be seen that this man also did whatever he wanted. But his last words truly confirmed what he said at the beginning. He did not take action against Hanzo in the end, and he did not hunt ninjas in large numbers. Despite this, these two people have shown a mentality of doing whatever they want. Generally speaking, the danger of the other party is a bit high, so you need to maintain a certain degree of vigilance. Where are you two? Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Yusuke and Tsunade. I think the same thing as Orochimaru. Me too. Seeing the two people's expressions that Orochimaru was right, third generation also lost the idea of asking them. He lowered his head and thought for a while, then raised his head and changed the topic. By the way, where's Jiraiya? Why didn't Jiraiya come back? As for third generation, we just realized now that Jiraiya didn't come back. Mainly, the third generation project itself feels that Jiraiya is generally of little use in this case. Now it was something that made Jiraiya think of him. Faced with the question of the purpose of third generation, Tsunade revealed the reason Jiraiya had prepared in advance. Jiraiya said that he wanted to draw material for a novel. It would be a vacation anyway when he comes back, so he asked me to tell you that he won't be back for a while, so you can just treat him as having a vacation. Let the third generation project know that Jiraiya is a child from the land of rain, and the third generation project will definitely feel uncomfortable. So Jiraiya came up with the reason of using material for novels to explain third generation. Besides, who says you can't draw material for novels when you're raising children? So this reason makes sense, plus it's Jiraiya's business. So Tsunade said it without any psychological burden. After finishing speaking, he asked, Old man, what are you doing with Jiraiya? I want him to be the leading ninja of a newly graduated team. Since he hasn't come back, let's forget it. Nothing's going on. You guys can go and have a good rest. I'm sorry to trouble you during this period. Yusuke also thought that his happy life was about to begin. Orochimaru is very smart. In the beginning stage of alchemy, he only needs to provide teaching materials, and Orochimaru can fully understand it. People like Yusuke, who want to show off, like students like Orochimaru. Except, of course, teaching Orochimaru alchemy. Yusuke will also teach Orochimaru some ideological and political classes. Orochimaru's thoughts are not as extreme as before. Under his Pua plan, his character can be said to have completely deviated from his original appearance. Therefore, things like betrayal and forbearance are highly unlikely to happen. The pursuit of life is no longer so eager, and there is still alchemy suppressing it. But this is not enough. All in all, Orochimaru's training plan has entered a new stage. Minato and Kushina's training, Yusuke also began to take over some of the training work of the two from Might Dai. Although it will take up a little time, overall, it is still easy. But just when Yusuke thought that these days would last for a long time, the arrival of a person made Yusuke realize that his beautiful life was going to be temporarily over. Take your exam well during the exam. Did you wear the purple underwear I bought for you? Wear it, wear it. Minato hesitated to speak because of shame. Who asks their children to prepare a pair of purple underwear before taking an exam? He also said weird things like, purple butt can do it. Okay, go ahead. Patting Minato and Kushina on the backs of their ears, Yusuke pushed the two children out of the door. Today is the day that Minato and Kushina, who plan to graduate from ninja school together, will take the exam. After sending off the two children, Yusuke returned to his seat and prepared to continue having breakfast with Tsunade. As a result, just halfway through eating, I heard a knock on the door. Anbu, what are you doing to come to me at this time? The third generation project is here. As soon as the other person's voice spoke, Yusuke remembered who it was. Oh, it's you again. The one who came was the ninja who took him to Mito's place last time. It seems that he is still a fan of Yakushi no. Tsunade, I'm going to the Hokage. Go on, I'm just going to take a nap. After leaving the house, Anbu Ninja's first question made Yusuke a little nervous. Brother Yusuke, you said you're back. Is No Yu-chan's new song going to be released soon? I'm getting ready, it should be soon. Okay. Are all the star chasers in Konoha like this now? It seems like I haven't been gone for long, right? The last time I saw you, you were still obsequious even when I asked for an autograph. Are you like this now? Brother Yusuke, you are so awesome, Tsunade-sama has become your girlfriend. Well enough. When the time comes for our wedding, remember to come. May I? What's wrong with this? The two of them walked all the way to the door of Hokage's office on this topic. Do you have anything to ask me about? Today there is no Utatane Kaharu, no Mitokado Homura, and no Hanzo. There is only one person in the third generation project. I want you to be the leading ninja of a small team. Have you said this before? I wanted Jiraiya to be the leader of the ninja before, but now Jiraiya won't be back for a while, so I have to find you. Besides, your own ability has already demonstrated its value on the battlefield. I think you are fully capable of being the leading ninja. Yusuke's eyes were rolled crazily under the bandage. Although I don't have such a thing as the whites of my eyes. In summary, I just want to let myself be Jiraiya's backup tire. Do you still remember that even if I go to the battlefield, I only go to the battlefield for Tsunade's sake? I have already submitted my retirement report. I believe these people will satisfy you. I just want to accept this matter in one sentence. How is it possible? But if you don't pick up, then I'll have to go find Tsunade to pick him up. Orochimaru hasn't been free recently. There really aren't many Jonin in the village who can be the guide Jonin for these people. After saying this, third generation said a lot more good things. Yusuke finally couldn't stand the old man's nagging anymore, so he finally opened his mouth. If you don't look for Tsunade, you look for yourself. Wouldn't the outcome be the same? Which shift? Class 7. Naruto and the others will also be in Class 7 from now on. The class number is okay. I have notified your team members in advance and they are already waiting for you in the 7th classroom. Okay, I agree. After agreeing, Yusuke didn't want to continue to listen to the nagging about the third generation purpose and went out directly. After Yusuke left, Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly called an Anbu. Then he said to Anbu, go and inform the teacher in charge of class placement to replace this with. Except for the Hokage building, Yusuke was not in a hurry and started walking slowly. As I walked, I began to think about what kind of people I would meet. This feeling is different from simply raising a child, because this relationship will also create a bond. For example, Team 7 and Kakashi, Sarutobi Asuma and Ino Shikacho from the 12. If he really was a character who would leave his mark in history, Yusuke might even start cultivating him. But if it was an ordinary passerby, Yusuke had already thought of a way out. Working for yourself, earning more and having less to do, is much safer than being a ninja. The most important thing is that I can still fish by myself, which is perfect. Just wandering around in his reverie, Yusuke wandered to the Ninja Academy. Class 7, found it. Yusuke opened the door and there was no mischief like Naruto greeted Kakashi. However, Yusuke looked at the only 3 people in the room, his eyes under the bandages full of surprise. No, why are you there? A little boy with yellow hair and a little girl with red hair. In addition, there is a little boy with black hair and a slightly lower appearance. The first 2 are easy, Minato, Kushina. Logically speaking, in various comics, the proportion of black-haired people with special abilities is relatively small. But the one in front of me really has something to do with the protagonist. No, what do you think of 3rd generation? What do you mean by putting Uchiha Fugaku in my hands? Are you crazy or am I crazy? This is why, Yusuke would say, there is a certain relationship with the protagonist. This is the protagonist Sasuke's father. Minato and Fugaku, the yellow-haired Sharingan, really gave Yusuke the feeling of meeting Naruto and Sasuke in advance. The only thing missing is that Ninetales is now on Kushina. This is also the point that Yusuke cannot understand the most. What does this 3rd generation think? Yusuke himself was a little confused, and so were the 3 people in the audience. Brother, if you don't accompany Sister Tsunade, what are you doing here? Kushina, who was most familiar with Yusuke, couldn't help but ask when she saw Yusuke standing on the stage without saying a word. At this moment, Yusuke came back to his senses and looked at the 3 children under the podium. Is there a possibility that I am your guide Jonin? At this time, Yusuke also thought that the reason why he gave Minato purple underwear today was because of Minato's graduation exam today. As a result, after the exam, it was directly assigned to myself. Real? Kushina asked hurriedly after listening to Yusuke's words. Minato's eyes were also full of expectation. As for Fugaku, his eyes were wandering, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Of course it's true. I just came out of the Hokage office. From today on, I will be your guide Jonin. Yusuke doesn't have much experience in coaching Jonin, but he still knows how to follow the example. Although everyone present knows each other, the process still needs to be followed. Everyone, please introduce yourself. My name is Namikaze Minato. My favorite thing is the awesome summer dream melancholy coral sparkling tea, and my dream is to be a Hokage. Become a Hokage. There was a hint of scrutiny in Fugaku's eyes as he looked at Minato. My name is Uzumaki Kushina. My thing is the awesome summer dream melancholy coral sparkling tea, and my dream is to be a Hokage. Fugaku. Have I seen the following paragraph somewhere? After introducing the 2 people he was familiar with, Fugaku was the only one left. Fugaku walked up to the podium, and Yusuke also looked at Fugaku. Fugaku's appearance here can be said to be completely beyond Yusuke's expectations. The first is Fugaku's identity, the young master of the Uchiha clan and the future head of the family. With someone of his stature, ninjas from the family would usually be trained. After all, he has Sharingan, a top-notch blood successor, and the one who knows the blood limit must be his own family. And there is a very important point, which is also the point that Yusuke cannot understand the most. Uchiha Madara once used Sharingan to control tailed beasts to attack Konoha. From that moment on, Konoha learned that Sharingan had the ability to control tailed beasts. Therefore, there is basically no chance for the Uchiha family to get close to the tailed beasts. But what now? Although Mito helped Kushina strengthen the seal, and also established a contract with himself, giving Kushina 5 years. But would these people really feel safe enough to allow Kushina to team up with the young patriarch of the Uchiha clan? My name is Uchiha Fugaku. I like wooden fish rice balls and don't like sweets. My dream is that Uchiha can integrate into the village. After finishing speaking, Fugaku walked off the podium and handed the podium back to Yusuke. After Fugaku sat down, he began to look at Yusuke on the podium. Fugaku heard about Yusuke's incident, dug out his eyes and returned them to the Uchiha clan, and completely opened up relations with the Uchiha clan. Fugaku doesn't have any special opinions about Yusuke's approach. I just didn't expect that one day I would get to know Yusuke in such a way. The only thing he cares about now is what Yusuke can teach him. Listening to discussions among the ninjas in his family, Yusuke made considerable contributions when he was on the front line. The family's original evaluation of Yusuke was mainly negative. But it's different now. The reputation was greatly improved by those Uchiha ninjas who had been to the front lines and participated in battles. At this time, Yusuke on the podium had already begun to introduce himself. My name is Yusuke Mikami, and what I like is... Under the gaze of the three little ones, Yusuke fell into a tangled state of thinking. After a while, the three little ones thought that Yusuke was going to continue speaking, but what Yusuke actually said left the three people in the audience stunned. It's lunchtime, what do you want to eat? I want to go to the store to eat. Although she didn't know how Yusuke's brain circuit turned, when faced with Yusuke's question, Kushina chose to answer Yusuke's question first. After all, I am already familiar with Yusuke's cooking. But Yusuke seemed to be in a daze and gave a completely different answer than Kushina. How about going to a barbecue? Konoha's barbecue is the most common place for parties in Konoha. Okay, let's go have barbecue. Fugaku, what about you? I'm okay, Fugaku replied immediately. It's mainly the question of Yusuke that gives Fugaku a special feeling. That's the kind of thing. Your parents ask you what you want to eat, and you say something, but in the end, your parents still cook for you according to their own wishes. I don't care at all what you said in the first place, what you want to eat. This was the feeling, so Fugaku chose on the spot and obeyed Yusuke's opinion. Then let's go eat barbecue. Of course, the best yakiniku restaurant in Konoha is the one owned by the Akamaki family. Apart from the slightly higher price, there are no other shortcomings. These children are. The waiter is also from the Akamaki clan, and his attitude towards Yusuke can be said to be quite good. Third generation wants me to be the guiding ninja for their 3 children. Yusuke explained to the waiter while ordering. You become the instructor Jonin. Then these kids will be lucky. After a few more pleasantries, the waiter left. At this time, Fugaku approached Minato and asked in a low voice, Yusuke, teacher, why are you so popular? It's okay. He seems to have a good relationship with the Akamaki family. Speaking of which, the reason why Yusuke has such a good relationship with the Akamaki family now is actually because of Coke. The initial promotion of Coke actually started at Akamaki's barbecue restaurant. After the Akamaki family tried Coke, they immediately welcomed Yusuke, Tsunade, and Orochimaru as guests. After someone experiences the wine made by Yusuke, they wish to worship Yusuke as a god. As soon as the food arrived and Yusuke started grilling, Tsunade also came. So, what's going on now? Tsunade watched Anbu take Yusuke to see the Hokage. What happened to the 3 children now? Kushina and Minato are okay. But where did this Uchiha boy come from? I am now the mentor to all 3 of them Jonin. It's good to have something to do. I'm afraid you'll get bored if you lie down all day. Dinner time is always the best time to bring people closer together. Among the Uchiha clan, Fugaku is considered a relatively easy to communicate type, and the 3 children chattered and became familiar with him. Everything was normal until another small group of people came and entered the barbecue restaurant. Yuhi Junhong, Konoha's Jonin. He can be considered a regular customer of Angel's Gift. Many people may not be familiar with Yuhi Junhong, and he is indeed not as famous as his daughter. His daughter is Yuhi Hong. And now behind Yuhi Junhong, there are 3 children. Everyone's forehead protector is well worn, and you can tell at a glance that they are all the same as Minato. He passed the graduation exam today and officially became a ninja genin. The reason why Fugaku's eyes look strange is because of a little girl among the children. Yusuke tilted his head and looked at Tsunade, both seeing the same meaning in the other's eyes. I want to take CP. After Yusuke explained to Tsunade what CP eating was, Tsunade successfully understood this procedure. Although he already has Yusuke, this does not prevent him and Yusuke from watching Minato and Kushina playing together. And now, it seems that there is a new pair of CP standing in front of him. Fugaku looks very mature, but he didn't expect that he would act like this after seeing the girl he likes. I like this little girl. Yusuke seemed to say something casually, but this sentence made Fugaku instantly raise his head and look at Yusuke with surprised eyes. But it seems that what Yusuke said just now is not what he said. As for fear, it is actually a mistake. Of course Yusuke is not afraid, because he actually knows the person Fugaku is looking at. Uchiha Makoto, the future wife of Fugaku, the mother of Sasuke and Itachi. Yuhi Junhong Senpai. At this time, Yuhi Mahong also noticed Yusuke. Yusuke, let's come and eat together. I'm here today to take the children I want to coach for a meal. Although they are still familiar with each other, Yuhi Mahong will not directly agree just because of Yusuke's words. Let's eat together. I'm also bringing the children I want to guide to eat. Are you here to guide Jonin too? Yes, this is my first time as a guide Jonin. Just think that I want to learn from you. Let's sit down and eat together. Yusuke said so. Yuhi Junhong couldn't find any reason to refuse, so she agreed. Then excuse me, children are naturally more likely to get together with children. Several little boys got together to chat, and Kushina actually chatted with Makoto. In the original plot, the two were best friends with similar personalities, and they soon started talking and laughing. It was Fugaku who would look at Makoto, who was talking to Kushina from time to time. As for Yusuke, Yusuke said that he wanted to ask for advice from Jonin's experience as a guide, that is, he wanted to ask for experience. As a result, while chatting, the two of them reached the front line. But we are not talking about the Rain Shinobi battlefield. A lot of information about the Rain Shinobi battlefield has been classified as confidential. After all, it involves the Arataki sect. The two talked about the Sand Shinobi battlefield. I heard someone say on the way here that something big happened at the Sand Shinobi battlefield. After Yusuke left home today, he basically didn't communicate with anyone. He really didn't know what happened on the Sand Shinobi battlefield. What's up? Didn't Hanzo personally lead the attack on the front line? When Sand Shinobi saw Hanzo coming to our side, he sent ninjas to raid the border. When Yuhi Junhong said this, Yusuke roughly guessed what it was about. Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law led a team to attack the Konoha border, but were killed by Hatake Tsukumo. It was also because of this incident that the later Red Sand Scorpion was born. But Yuhi Junhong's thoughts are different from Yusuke's. Also, this time the team is led by Sand Shinobi's third Kazekage himself. Aren't they Chiyo's sons and daughters-in-law? How come the third Kazekage, the guy known as the strongest Kazekage in history, personally led the team? So what's going on at the front? Yusuke was immersed in doubts, and Tsunade also thought that Nawaki was on the front line of Sand Shinobi, so he hurriedly asked. As a result, Nawaki took down the Kazekage alone, and the White Fang took the opportunity to kill the other two members of the opponent, Admiral, who are said to be the son and daughter-in-law of Sand Shinobi Chiyo. After that, Kazekage saw Tsukumo finish off two of his men, Admiral. He didn't want to face Nawaki and White Fang at the same time, so he ran away in despair. Tsunade felt that what he heard was a bit unreal. A group of them were hung up and beaten in Rain Shinobi, but now Nawaki, on the front line of the Land of Wind, fought back the strongest Kazekage with Tsukumo. Yuhi Junhong's words also made a group of recently graduated children envious. Please, see the shadow of another country and force you to retreat or something. Is there anything more awesome than this in the world? Chatting about Nawaki, Yusuke was also shocked by Nawaki's growth. At first, I thought you were here to celebrate Nawaki's achievements. It is indeed the Konoha barrier. It is estimated that many girls now regard Nawaki as their dream lover. Tsunade nodded in agreement and subconsciously expressed what he was thinking. It seems that it is indeed necessary to start looking for a girlfriend for Nawaki. If I had a daughter, she might consider Nawaki her idol now. I might introduce him to you too. Is this true? Yusuke really thought about the combination of Nawaki and Yuhi Kurenai. Although Yusuke himself was very moved when Sarutobi Asuma passed away. But since he saw Sarutobi Asuma's deceitful behavior twice in Konoha, the more Yusuke looked at Sarutobi Asuma, the more displeased he became. Seriously, ha 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 ha. After eating and drinking, everyone dispersed on the spot. After the disbandment, Yusuke did not plan to take these children to pick up tasks on the first day. So let's just go back to our respective homes and find our own mothers. Uchiha Tribe Land. Fugaku walked into the house and saw his father waiting for him. Father, why did you come back so late today? Chief Uchiha simply asked and didn't pay much attention to the question. Instead, he got down to business. I specifically asked third generation not to put you on the list right now. From now on, you can just learn from the ninjas in the clan. But, I have guidance Jonin. That's not right. I clearly invited third generation to let you in. Chief Uchiha quickly realized something was wrong. After thinking for a moment, the Uchiha chief asked, "Who is your guide Jonin?" "Mikami Yusuke." "Mikami Yusuke." Chief Uchiha frowned, wondering what the third generation's plan was. Although Yusuke has been in the limelight recently, he has clearly made an agreement with the third generation project in advance. Why did the third generation project directly give his son to Yusuke Mikami? This time, how do you plan to target the Uchiha clan? Who are your two remaining teammates? Namikaze Minato and Kushina. Now, Chief Uchiha was even more confused. Why does this include Jinchuriki? Yusuke originally planned to make out with Tsunade before going out. As a result, just after breakfast, Yusuke was pushed out of his home by Tsunade. What's the point of staying at home all day? It would be great to go out and do some activities. Before disbanding yesterday, Yusuke told the three people the time and place. But let's be honest, I didn't expect to arrive so early. If the children come early, they can get to know each other. If you do this process by yourself, I'm afraid they won't be able to adapt. If these children are conscious, they can also use it as a military stance session before training every day. As a result, when Yusuke arrived, Yusuke saw three little ones from a distance. "Good morning." Yusuke yawned and greeted the three little ones who were already waiting for him. "Have you had breakfast?" "Have eaten." The three little ones answered in unison. "Have you done your warm-up?" "Done." "What time did you come?" 6 o'clock in the morning. The three little ones answered in unison. "Don't come so early in the future. You are still young. More sleep will be good for your health." Minato and Kushina were already familiar with Yusuke's lazy attitude, but Fugaku looked confused. Is this time really early? The kids all said they were warmed up, so Yusuke got right to the point. "Have you ever played with bells?" "No. This thing is simply the most common way to guide Jonin, the first genin you want to guide." The third generation head teacher Tsunade and the three of them played like this, and it turned out that they were still playing like this until Kakashi brought Naruto and the others. Since it can be circulated for so many years, it means that everyone will tacitly conceal information related to stealing the bell. If it is revealed, then the test you want to achieve by grabbing the bell will have no reference value. I have 2 bells here, and I carry them around my waist. Whoever grabs the bell before 12 noon today can continue to stay in this team. Anyone who doesn't grab it will be sent back to the ninja school by me. It's not impossible to repeat the grade for another year. Can you still do this? Putting aside the shame of being sent back, Fugaku first questioned whether Yusuke had the ability to do this. The final interpretation rests with me. Any other questions? With the sentence before this sentence, the 3 little ones also knew that they had no right to refuse. Just cheer me up, we'll start right away with no problem. Fugaku, how about you, old man, cheer up yourself first. Then I'll teach you. Minato and Kushina have actually been waiting for this opportunity to confront Yusuke head-on. The two felt that only by confronting Yusuke head-on could they show Yusuke the results of their efforts. Might Dai has recognized them, and now what they have to do is to use their own actual operations to conquer Yusuke. Minato put the black stick he was carrying in his hand and shook it, and the black stick turned into a spear. This is something Yusuke is familiar with. Minato doesn't have a system backpack like himself. Therefore, in order to solve the problem of the long gun being inconvenient to carry, Minato specially asked a shop that specializes in ninja tools, and worked with them to develop such a long gun that can be folded. Minato reacted the fastest. As he approached Yusuke, he couldn't help but unfold his spear, and his body was already in a serious marksmanship posture. Fugaku himself also noticed the way the spear looked when it was not unfolded. But he didn't think much about it, thinking that it was really just an ordinary stick. Result: this stick is actually a pointed weapon. Fugaku has never seen a gun, and cannot understand the weapon Minato is currently using. Minato's speed is not slow. In Yusuke's eyes, it means a little cold light arrives first. Just like running requires practicing starting, Minato has obviously practiced this routine. But then the gun shot out like a dragon stage. The dragon had already started to gain momentum, but soon, this initial momentum was directly cut off by a sudden resistance. Looking closely, Yusuke already had a green spear in his hand. Fugaku, where did you get this one from? Minato changed the direction of the attack a few more times, but Yusuke caught them one by one. After realizing that he couldn't defeat Yusuke's moves, Minato suddenly changed the target of his attack. His mind was moving very quickly, and he was not too concerned about attacking himself. He still remembered the initial mission. Kushina, Fugaku, attack the bell, I am coming. At this time, Fugaku finally came to his senses, but soon, he was shocked again by the scene in front of him. Kushina didn't know when she had rushed behind Yusuke. The fist that has reached the backhand position has been punched out in a swinging posture. In Fugaku's eyes, Sharingan has already opened. He clearly noticed that Kushina's extremely fast fist was covered with uzumaki that seemed to be composed of cyan airflow. Yusuke also felt the fluctuation of airflow from behind, but the spear still maintained its posture of attacking Minato and could not be withdrawn. This was the opportunity Kushina was looking for. But the result, Yusuke just turned slightly sideways, and the blow passed by him without touching his body, but only made the clothes on his body make a loud noise. Hee. Yusuke originally thought he had escaped, but the next second, Yusuke felt another small storm gathering and heading towards his stomach. At this time, Yusuke finally had no choice but to withdraw his spear from attacking Minato. The crossbar blocked Kushina's second punch. Why do I feel like I have seen something similar to this move? However, this idea only appeared for a moment, and Yusuke had to make a new move. Fugaku's great fireball technique is long overdue. It's not that Fugaku kept paddling, but the way Minato and Kushina fought made Fugaku feel a little uncomfortable. Ninjas shouldn't be fighting each other with ninjutsu. Why do they come here to fight like a samurai? Moreover, the skill of one weapon is no worse than that of a samurai, and the other is inherently powerful, and the fists also have special airflow effects. Fugaku thinks he has strong adaptability, but Minato and Kushina still completely exceed Fugaku's adaptability limit. In this regard, Fugaku even wanted to ask himself, could it be that I, the ninja, am a fake? Back to why Fugaku moved now, it has something to do with the fact that Minato and Kushina directly entered the close combat phase as soon as they came up. The speed of these three people is too fast, and the more they concentrate and consume their energy, the faster they feel. Therefore, he has never found a suitable opportunity to release his ninjutsu. It wasn't until Kushina's fist knocked Yusuke away that Fugaku finally found the opportunity to release his first ninjutsu. Yusuke originally subconsciously wanted to put up a shield or use sprint to block the invincibility frame to avoid this great fireball technique. In particular, he wanted to use Toma's element to explode the armor of true red blazing fire. Toma's shield has a 250% absorption effect on fire elemental damage. In addition, the Uchiha clan is good at fire style. This also means that as long as you activate this skill, you basically don't have to worry about Fugaku's attacks. But in the end I didn't do it. Mainly because I changed my mind and thought, if I use this trick, wouldn't I lose the purpose of teaching? So Yusuke directly used a method that was normal, but completely beyond Fugaku's expectations, and avoided this attack. It's submarine technique. The submersible technique allows the caster to dive underground, but will also leave certain traces on the ground. But now, there is obviously only one Yusuke, but there are two traces on the ground. There is only one Yusuke, which means that one of the two now is a clone. Quickly chasing Fugaku, Fugaku retreated while anticipating the route of the people underground, and successfully used the earth-style Tulong gun to directly push out the people in the earth. And this Yusuke, after being pushed out, turned into a puff of smoke. This is fake. Kushina. Neither route found itself. Instead, it attacks Kushina. Fugaku's is fake, so Kushina's is most likely real. What I wish for. As soon as Yusuke broke out of the ground, he felt a very obvious suction force on his body, and the center of the suction force was Kushina. The suction force increased suddenly, and Yusuke's body quickly lost control and flew towards Kushina quickly. Yusuke also feels more and more that he has seen these skills of Kushina before. Kushina also managed to grab Yusuke's collar. What happened next was not only beyond Minato's understanding, but also beyond Yusuke's expectations. As for Fugaku, he was the most confused on the scene. Kushina flew up, flying with Yusuke. In fact, it was just a simple jump, but this jump was very high. After that, dropped down quickly. Feeling the increasing speed, Yusuke finally thought of why Kushina's moves were so familiar to him. Bang! The speed reached its highest peak when it reached the ground. During the flight, the wind used to restrain Yusuke's body was also poured into Yusuke's body at this moment. The ground was originally cracked because of Kushina's blow, but the subsequent wind made Fugaku, who was farthest away, feel like he couldn't open his eyes. Too strong. At this time, Yusuke finally realized why he was so familiar with Kushina's moves. Isn't this girl just breathtaking? The 2 punches he just punched him, weren't they the Q skill of Wan Hao, a commanding force? Now this is Wan Hao's ultimate move. Could it be that this Kushina has actually awakened some kind of alliance system, or should we say a powerful system? No, that's not right. These things are more like the result of Kushina fully combining Might Day's physical skills based on what she taught him, and combining the two. It's just that in terms of expression, he looks a bit like a wealthy man. Looking at the scene around Kushina, Fugaku subconsciously asked Minato, who had been blown to his side. Is it really okay for Kushina to be so cruel? Minato didn't know how to answer either. Mainly, I just know that Kushina is specially prepared to do hard things for Yusuke. This is also Minato's first encounter. At this moment, Kushina's posture made Minato and Fugaku directly raise the danger level of Vice Admiral Kushina to the highest level. Then, boom, it's not as loud as when Kushina dropped Yusuke with her. But this sound, like Hong Zhang Dalu, hit everyone's heart hard. Yusuke, who suffered a fatal blow from Kushina, turned into a cloud of smoke just like the clone that died in Fugaku's hands at this moment. Is this also a fake? So where is it really? Fugaku, the entrance of the cave. Minato reacted instantly and called Fugaku to join him. In order to avoid the Great Fireball technique, Yusuke launched a submarine technique at the hole left by the technique, and formed a seal together to activate the ninjutsu. Fire-style Great Fireball technique. Wind-style Great Breakthrough. The wind helped the fire, and the billowing flames went straight to the entrance of the cave. But, boom, there was another sound of the clone breaking into pieces and turning into smoke. At this moment, a joking voice sounded behind the 2 of them. You guessed it wrong. Under the background of this sound, the sound of the broken clone at the entrance of the cave seemed like a tease to the 2 of them. The location where Yusuke appears is behind the Fugaku Tulong gun. Minato and Fugaku were still thinking of doing something, but the next second, 2 ropes appeared and tied the 2 people into a caterpillar. Kushina, who rushed over with strong support, was tied up with a rope. All 3 of them failed. Yusuke only said that there were 2 bells, but he did not say that he would give these 2 bells to these 3 people. I planned to let the situation slip a little, but I wouldn't say that I deliberately let the loophole slip and gave the bell to 2 people, and then let them decide the life or death of the 3rd person. No need. Among these 3 people, 2 are close to me. Yusuke naturally knows these 2 people well. If he said that he who didn't have a bell didn't have lunch, he would leave one more sentence, and whoever gave him a meal would go back to the ninja school together. Based on my understanding of these 2 people will definitely give Fugaku a meal. Conditions met. If it was not Fugaku who was arrested, but one of Kushina and Minato was arrested, then the one who wasn't caught would definitely take Fugaku with him to feed the ones who were caught. The conditions are also met. Therefore, there is only 2 bells. If you want to test, there is no need to test. It would be better to arrest all 3 of them directly. If I don't arrest him, I'm afraid Fugaku won't accept it. After all, he is a big family, or the eldest son of the number 1 jujutsu family in the ninja world, and the intended head of the family. Yusuke was really afraid that he would not accept it. After tying the 3 people to the tree, Yusuke began to lecture the 3 people. But when they arrived at Fugaku, Yusuke secretly thought something was wrong. Why is this Fugaku acting like this, submissive and saying what he is saying? But when he saw the way Fugaku looked at the 2 people around him, especially the way he looked at Kushina, Yusuke understands. This has been defeated. Konoha, Mission Office. Performing tasks is basically the main source of income for ninjas. None of them, people like Yusuke, are special cases. Even Jiraiya, who makes money by writing books, is considered a special case. Although Jiraiya has not yet made any money by writing books, he is just a pure street person. But in the future, the royalties will be equal to the gambling money Tsunade owes. Bringing Genin to the mission office and accepting the mission is the first step for every mentor Jonin to officially start mentoring. The same goes for Yusuke. Because it was just the graduation season, when the lazy Yusuke arrived at the mission department was already overcrowded. Minato glanced over and saw many people he knew. Kushina became excited as soon as she entered the mission department. A-level mission. A-level mission. Yusuke turned his head and looked at Kushina, with a hint of helplessness in his tone. You have just been promoted to Genin, so you can only receive D-level missions. A D-level mission is a D-level mission, as long as you can fight. Yusuke, how do I feel that after you and I fought, you released something, the devil in your heart or something like that? Why is the taste of Wanhao getting stronger and stronger? The relationship between Minato and Kushina is now on the level of happy enemies. Isn't that right? As soon as Kushina said she wanted to fight, she was immediately dismantled by Minato. D-level missions generally do not involve combat. Only at C-level missions are there the possibility of being injured. Only at B-level missions are there possible encounters with ninjas. From A-level missions, it may involve a village. At S-level missions, it is a national secret. Minato seemed to be afraid that Kushina would not give up, and then added, Genin can only accept D-level and C-level missions. In fact, if you want to take on C-level missions, you need to take on a considerable number of D-level missions before you can take on C-level missions. As for those above sea level, you need to be a Chunin to receive them. Then is it still too late for me to take the Chunin exam? Kushina caught the point in Yusuke's words on the spot and asked immediately as if grasping a life-saving straw. In fact, it's not possible. You need to accumulate tasks before you can register for the Chunin exam. Minato's words successfully took away the last straw from Kushina's hand. Kushina collapsed on the spot. But it didn't attract too many people's attention, because Kushina's situation is not uncommon. Many newly graduated ninjas have high self-esteem, but when they come here, they are all tasked with catching cats as babysitters. Many people collapsed on the spot. It's just that Kushina's mood became a little more intense. Most people were busy taking care of their own genin, and no one noticed Kushina who just walked in. Only Fugaku looked at Kushina who punched Minato, and silently gave Minato a thumbs up in his heart. Minato, you were really brave, you really dared to demolish any stage. In fact, Kushina just punched twice symbolically, rejoicing in enemies, but not really enemies. But in the end, Yusuke was scolded. You too, learn from Fugaku and see how stable he is. How unbecoming it is for so many people to be fooling around here. Fugaku, can you please stop talking about me? Fugaku, watch these two. Yes, Fugaku. I feel like if I continue like this, I will become a guy who only dares to have in my heart. Leaving the three children where they were, Yusuke spent a lot of effort and finally got to the front desk to receive the task. And I started to look through the missions that my new genin team could take on. Yusuke originally thought that it would be tasks such as catching cats and pulling weeds. As a result, Yusuke really found a very special one among many such tasks. Although only discussing the work that needs to be completed is no better than catching cats or pulling weeds. But when Yusuke saw this mission, he directly chose this mission. Class 7, take over this mission. Konoha Orphanage's orchard picking, right. I've already picked it up for you. There was only one village in Konoha, so how big an orchard could an orphanage be? The pay for this task is not low, so why doesn't anyone take it? After Yusuke accepted the task, he walked out of the crowd and told the three people about the task. Let's go, Konoha Orphanage. Although this task, in terms of type, is somewhat not to Kushina's liking. But after all, this is the first task of his class. At this time, Kushina has returned to a state of full motivation. Yusuke himself is usually away from Konoha and does not have a clear understanding of this task. Looking at the orchard that stretched halfway up the mountain, I finally understood why no one took up this task. Co-author. You all know that the orphanage has such a large orchard, but I didn't know about it. I said, I don't know, do you believe that there is such a large orchard in the orphanage? None of the three little ones spoke, because they know that they cannot escape this mission today. After Yusuke saw the three little ones, he turned to look at the staff of the orphanage who led him here. The orchard here is quite small, ha 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 ha. When Yusuke talked about it, he was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. As a result, the staff member sighed and replied, in the final analysis, I still have to thank you, Mr. Yusuke. Yusuke pointed his finger at his face with disbelief. At the same time, the three little ones also looked at Yusuke with resentful eyes. Does this orchard have anything to do with Yusuke? The three little ones were almost starting to form conspiracy theories, saying that Yusuke just wanted to find them to work for him. Because of you, our dean can earn so much money. This land was originally the scope of the orphanage. After the dean got rich, he bought this place. Ouch, I remember. Yakushi Nanoyu. To be honest, when I accepted the mission, I did think of Yakushi no, and that's why I came to the orphanage. As a result, Yakushi Nunoyu was not there, so Yusuke took the three little ones to the orchard immediately. I never thought that Yakushi would plant an orchard directly on the mountainside. After chatting with the staff for a few words, the staff offered to take Yusuke back to the orphanage. Yusuke agreed and told the three little ones, you three, do your best, and I'll leave first. Seeing the resentful eyes of the three little ones, the staff smiled slightly and comforted the three of them. You don't have to worry too much. In fact, you three are not the only ones here to help pick. There are a few kids your age who arrived a little earlier than you and have been picking for a long time. The current Konoha orphanage is just an ordinary orphanage. There's no Yakushi Kabuto, or the weird Uchiha clone from Incombustible Den. Some are just small families composed of a group of war orphans. When Yusuke arrived at the orphanage, there were many children playing outside. Yusuke took out a few candies from his body and got the right to touch the heads of a group of human cubs. After being separated from the child, the staff brought Yusuke into the house. It was myself and Orochimaru who saw Yakushi Nunoyu's house for the first time. While the staff was pouring tea for Yusuke, they were also busy praising Yusuke. Yusuke-sama is really kind-hearted. Don't call me Lord. It sounds very uncomfortable. Yusuke took the teacup, took a sip, and continued, Yakushi has a good voice. This is her own advantage. She makes a lot of money, and I make more than her. Even though Yusuke said this, when Yusuke glanced at the staff member while drinking tea, he could still feel the gratitude in the staff's eyes. How should I put it? Yusuke knew that such a look was a positive emotion. But it still makes Yusuke feel a little uncomfortable. There are more and more children in the orphanage recently. The staff member nodded, his eyes no longer as hot as looking at Yusuke, he lowered his head and became full of sadness. Fortunately, the director makes enough money, otherwise, I really don't know how to keep the orphanage going. The increase in war orphans will not only increase the number of people coming to orphanages. The number of people who will be taken away by Danzo may also increase. Danzo doesn't care about the miserable status of war orphans, what he wants is a helpless person. Because such people are the most suitable to be brainwashed and manipulated by him. Become a chess piece that belongs only to him. The staff chatted with Yusuke for a long time, ranging from Yakushi No's songs to Chilaizian, and finally even talked about the front line of Rain Shinobi. After the two chatted for a while, the door was pushed open from the outside, and Yakushi walked in. It's just that in Yusuke's opinion, Yakushi No's expression is a bit fake. It was like a teacher who was still chatting and laughing in the corridor, but changed into a cold face the moment he entered the class. It's just that Yakushi Nanoyu obviously did it the other way around. The smile on his face now is a bit fake, so fake that it almost catches up with the staff member next to him. Master Dean. When the staff saw Yakushi Nunoyu coming back, they stood up hurriedly. How did you come? Yakushi Nanoyu sat down on the other side of Yusuke and asked Yusuke. I started working as a guide jonin the day before yesterday. I originally wanted to discuss the new song with you, but I just happened to take over the task of the orchard. But you are not here, so I will wait here. Are you finally going to release a new song? Do you know that the reminder letters are already piling up in the recording studio? I haven't been to the recording studio yet. Yusuke scratched his face in embarrassment. Okay, Okay, you're back just in time, so let's discuss the new song first. After Yusuke finished telling Yakushi no, he turned to look at the staff aside. The new song is top secret information. Do you think you should avoid it? Well, the staff member nodded hurriedly, showed an expression of understanding, and said with a smile, then I'm going to prepare lunch. Mr. Yusuke, do you have any taboos? I also can. After getting Yusuke's answer, the staff went out. How are you? I already made a lot of money before, and the orphanage's financial situation has improved a lot. During the casual conversation, Yusuke took out a chinlizian from behind his back and a jade silk. Putting the jade silk on chinlizian, a very powerful prelude came and occupied the whole room. The previous cooperation model between the two was similar to the current one. Yusuke is good at accompaniment, and sometimes he even sings with him, which is a better version than what he sings. Yakushi Nanoyu has long been familiar with this. So when Yusuke moved closer to him, Yakushi Nanoyu also paused subconsciously. Yusuke wanted to explain to himself the precautions in this song. Going to Danzo's place. But the first words out of Yusuke's mouth made Yakushi a little nervous. She trusts Yusuke very much. But it was this trust that made her almost subconsciously nod and agree to Yusuke. And as long as he nodded, it meant that he admitted that he was Danzo's person. Yakushi Nanoyu. Originally Yusuke just wanted to discuss Danzo. But in Yusuke's current view, Yakushi Nanoyu is very suitable to be included in his plan to deal with Danzo. Yes, although World War II will still take several years to be completely over. But in Yusuke's opinion, preparations can be made to deal with Danzo. Ah, what did you just say? I was so absorbed in listening that I didn't hear it. Seeing Yakushi Nanoyu's behavior, pretending not to hear what Yusuke said clearly, Yusuke wanted to laugh inexplicably. If I hadn't read the original work, I might have been deceived by Yakushi no. He is truly an elite man under Danzo. Wondering which, right? Yusuke did not repeat the question to Yakushi Nanoyu, but directly chose to reveal Yakushi Nanoyu's code name. Yakushi no is Danzo's private soldier. He is a part of the group that has ulterior motives and cannot be sued even by Hokage. I also know that Danzo is not at ease with you now. The staff member just now is Danzo's person. Besides, I think you haven't noticed it yet. You won't really regress, right? This is why Yusuke played this song. The purpose is to prevent outside staff from hearing the conversation between himself and Yakushi Nanoyu. Not to mention, this feeling of digging into the corners of the roots in front of the roots is really a little exciting. What are you talking about? I can't understand. What Danzo? Due to his professional ethics, Yakushi decided to reject directly what Yusuke had just said. Even if what Yusuke said is true. Didn't you discover something? Yusuke shrugged, with a winner's smile on his lips. According to your professional ethics, in addition to refuting me, you can also choose to take action directly and kill me, a weak sentient ninja, on the spot. But you didn't. Your trust, your loyalty to Danzo, it has been called into question. Yusuke's voice, like the whisper of a devil, penetrated into Yakushi No's ears. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.